who was I want to hear from you. It's not that I want you not to say, but if you only knew how easy it would be to show me how you feel. More than words is all you have to do to make it real. Then you wouldn't have to say that you love me, 'cause I'd already know. What would you do if my heart was torn in two? More than words to show you feel that your love for me is real. What would you say if I took those words away? Then you couldn't make things new just by saying I love you. La di da di da da da. More than words. Now that I've tried to talk to you and make you understand, all you have to do is close your eyes and just reach out your hands and touch me. Hold me close, don't ever let me go. More than words is all I ever needed you to show. Then you wouldn't have to say that you love me, 'cause I'd already know. What would you do if my heart was torn in two? More than words to show you feel that your love for me is real. What would you say if I took those words away? Then you couldn't make things new just by saying I love you. More than words. La di da di da da da. More than words. La di da di da da da. More than more than words. but I warned you then that baby, I don't seem insane, but I fucking am. And I'm rocking a little gold chain that ain't real gold. I told you that it's fucking fake. I spend my money elsewhere on different things that come in little plastic bags, and they disappear the same way, the same night. I ain't your average normal dude, it sure ain't glamorous. Keep things loose, I ain't your average punk rock loser, yeah, I'm a savage. I keep things loose. Tried to warn you I'm loose. I'm really cool, trust me. I try to warn you that I'm bad and I'm loose. I'm looser than a piece of low-hanging fruit. I don't go to parties where folks get dressed up. I go to the function just to fuck shit up. I want you, baby, that ain't juice in my cup. It's promethazine and a little 7-Up. I try to warn you that I'm bad and I'm loose. I'm looser than a piece of low-hanging fruit. I ain't your average normal dude, it sure ain't glamorous. Keep things loose, I ain't your average punk rock loser, yeah, I'm a savage. I'm really cool. I'm loose. I said I'm loose, baby. Woo. Tell me how to dress. I look in the mirror saying, man, you're the best. And I'm so sorry, honey, but I gotta confess, don't give a fuck about you, I could really care less. I ain't your average normal dude, that sure ain't glamorous. I keep things loose, I ain't your average punk rock loser, yeah, I'm a savage. I'm really cool. I'm really cool, seriously, but most of all, I'm loose. I don't stand in line, I don't pay for class, fuck that, yeah. But I wait for you. I don't like to drink, I don't like to think, fuck that, woo. But I ponder you, I'm bending it over, my four-leaf clover. I'm so in love, so in love. There's no one down above, up above. Forever's a long time, yes. My blue jeans will last me all my life. Whoa, yeah. So should we? I'm spending all this time. Met you at the shop, sun was getting hot, I'm lonely, yeah. I'm in the city on my own. Never would've thought you'd be the one, I gotta homie. But that's the way it goes. I'm reaching nirvana. Goodbye, sweet Rwanda. High school was never for me. Yeah, I say let it be, let it be. Forever's a long time. Yeah, my blue jeans will last me all my life. Whoa, yes. So should we? I'm spending all this time. You don't even know me. You don't even know me. Yeah, I'm hanging from the tree. I'm hanging from the tree. Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. Happy New Year, everybody. This is almost the end of like the holiday cycle, so I don't have to say happy holidays anymore. But yeah, so was just a little bit of karaoke as I normally do to kind of warm up, because most of the time I wake up and do my stream. I'm not doing any talking in the morning, so it's like waking up from being like literally not talking at all to being time to do a stream for 2 hours. And you know, your voice, just like anything else, is essentially like a muscle. You have to work it out. So there you go. How's it going, Eleanor Dev, WF, Def Cope? Did I miss anybody? Trey Chapel. So is this an old podcast you used to do that you were reviving? No, I've been doing it. I just don't upload the VODs on my channel. And this is pretty common with most people that do a podcast, unless like their podcast is just like super popular for some reason. Like they usually have like a different channel they upload it on. Like for example, you know, Joe Rogan, most famously when he was on YouTube, excuse me. That's what I get for eating before. I always make that joke. But he would have all of his episodes on YouTube, of course, because that's where his stuff was. But in terms of like everyone else, like yeah. Everyone else is just we put the main content on our channel, and then we'll have like a side channel for our like podcast stuff, or we'll cut it up and put it in a main channel. And it's you can barely hear? Oh, let me see. I'm kind of moving around a little bit. Let me turn my mic up. So for those wondering why my setup is so weird sometimes, it's because the setup that I use for voicing is not technically the same kind of setup there. I hopefully fixed it as I use for my stream, which means that the voice and vocal levels are going to come across very differently. When I'm doing my voiceovers, I'm pretty much always talking like this and talking with like very low volume, so I don't get any kind of background noise. And people might say, yeah, but don't you have like sound control setups and stuff? It's like, yeah, but at the same time, no. Because they don't really work. So you still have to be smart and know how to utilize the technology so as to not get a bunch of background noise and other kind of stuff like that. Anyway, you got me to say your name out loud. Yeah, I mean, I usually say everyone's name whenever I'm saying hello at the start. Like Rusox, I didn't say hello. Axia. I think it's Axia. So today I thought I'd do like an interesting stream. So I've been seeing like the rise in popularity of like YouTube Shorts, and it's been interesting me because I have a lot of content and topics I'd like to get to that don't always make for the best like watchable like longer form videos. And the sad truth is like, while many of you watching right now, sorry, I have a lozenge in my mouth, might feel like I would watch all of that. I want you to explain all of that. You're kind of like the controlled experiment. You know what I mean? Like most people don't actually like that kind of content and don't really want to have to think that much when they're, you know, consuming content. So anytime I've ever done very kind of like big brain type stuff, it just doesn't really get much play. And it's sad because it's like I want to talk more about stuff like that. And I think that talking about more stuff like that is helpful for the industry. But I also have to make a living. Just to be blunt, right? I have to make a living, right? Because if I don't make a living, then I won't be able to keep doing this anyway. And then I kind of failed in my whole mission in the first place. So, yeah, I don't want to do that. So in order to, you know, win and be able to still play, I have to be able to put out videos and be able to also cover some popular topics. That's why you guys can see me go from like the day before to covering The Sims Online. Because for me, I'm interested in just interesting stories. So I'll cover all kinds of stories, which is good and bad. It's bad in the sense that I don't always like focus, I'm sorry, on what's gonna make me the most money. So I found kind of like a middle ground now where I try to cover some new stuff and then cover some old stuff and then cover some new stuff and then cover some old stuff and kind of do that, you know, back and forth. I'm pretty sure there's sound because, yeah, people were asking me questions. So I think they heard my voice. Gotcha, I only follow you on YouTube. This is my first time seeing this. Yeah, it's because I leave the VODs up for like a day, then I move them to my other channel. So it's not surprising you haven't seen them, to be honest. Not gonna lie, I thought you were African American. Well, the only comment I'll say about, well, two comments about that. So first comment is anyone who's ever played video games with me online, especially in shooters, which is, you know, a handful of people. By the way, if you join our community at discord.gg/nerdslayer, you can play tons of games with me. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that when I go online, since I've been 12 years old, I've been called every racial insult you can imagine, except Asian, basically. I mean, I've been insulted with Asian stuff whenever I've named myself like kind of nerdy anime names or stuff like that. But like really online because I've been, the thing about like me is like, I've been terminally online while also living a real life at the same time, because I come from the generation of millennials where we were able to experience both. The internet wasn't really big when I was young, so I got to go outside, and then the internet got big, and it kind of changed everything. And I got really into it because it was a place for weirdos like me to kind of get along. And but anyway, unlike maybe some people that I've met and encountered that are very terminally online, they never use voice stuff. I got on voice stuff right away because I didn't know that that was like something that it was a barrier for nerds or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I came from the real world enough where I was like, oh, because I went to a social club as a kid. I went to Boys and Girls Club as a kid because I was poor. But those experiences helped me socialize and at least understand the concept of like, okay, you can meet people and talk to them with your voice, not just chatting with them. Which is a problem I think a lot of the generations have nowadays, by the way, is that they're not very good at chatting with voice. But anyway, so I would go online at probably age 12, 13, and I was already using Ventrilo, TeamSpeak. All that stuff existed back when I was a kid. Which is a common misconception people have, is that, oh, voice Discord didn't exist, so voice, it's like, no, we were like, all the turbo nerds were using voice comms, trust me. I was one of them. I was there. We had Vent, yeah, Xfire was another one. Xfire I would use to stream to my friends, and we would use to send screenshots and memes back and forth. We didn't really use it for voice communication because in my opinion it sucked. But I didn't like TeamSpeak myself because of like how it looked. It looked very ugly and very like metallic. Vent was more of my thing. That being said, I hated the sound that Vent would make whenever people wouldn't change their push to talk, and they'd have like, remember, they'd be like, burp, 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 burp. It'd be so loud and annoying. I'm like, ugh. But anyway, the reason people wonder this all the time, how are you on Ventrilo playing with adults? Well, my balls dropped when I was 12. Kind of a really cool thing that happened, actually. I got really lucky that I hit puberty at a very young age, and it changed my voice like you hear now. So when I was young, 12, 13 already, people all thought I was old. They also thought I was black, is the point that I was trying to make as well. And I think if I'm going to like humor that for a second, this is me actually taking it seriously, by the way. Just for a second, because there's not much serious there to take. But the serious part is like, I'm from Houston, okay? I grew up in Houston. I grew up in Sharpstown, South Houston. Like, I'm not from a very good place. My best friend growing up was black. Like, I'm from a bad neighborhood. I grew up with tons of ghetto friends that weren't black, by the way, because my neighborhood was Hispanic. But the point that I'm making is like, Houston, if you guys are familiar with it as a city, and slang-wise, and ghetto speak, yeah, we're notoriously known for sounding pretty uneducated. We are also uneducated, by the way. But anyway, so people often wonder, how come you know so many mannerisms? Like, how come you know black culture so well? It's like, in Houston, trust me, like, if you're from the places I'm from, you basically don't have a choice. Like, you learn about the stuff because it's not only cool, but you're exposed to it all the time. So it's like, a lot of other people might not be exposed to culture, so they don't get exposed. Like, for example, when Hurricane Katrina happened, I had, boom, this legion of displaced people come from Louisiana. That changed us a lot culturally. I made at least like 2 friends whenever Katrina happened. 2 friends that were Louisiana, like Cajun boys. And by the way, my grandma on my mom's side is Cajun. So I related to the Katrina kids, and I really relate. And I really, didn't we take, oh, I didn't even, are you from Houston too? So I didn't even know you're from Houston. I didn't know yeah, Zakeem, I didn't know if you were from Houston or not. But yeah, like my neighborhood, we had like 3 or 4 families come in. And these were some of the coolest kids I met, man. Uh, so like people shit on a lot of those people, but I made a lot of friends during that time. And no, to be clear, Houston is a very segregated city. Like I like to talk about this stuff honestly, because it makes people uncomfortable, and I like to talk about stuff like that. But Houston's a very segregated city, sadly, and it you can, when you drive around it, it's like literally so night and day. You go to one neighborhood, for example, where I was born and only raised there for a couple of years, is called Sharpstown. It's not a very good place. It's pretty notorious for being crime ridden. But right next to it is Chinatown. Like, it's not just Chinese; it's also Vietnamese too. But there's an Asian neighborhood, a big Asian neighborhood. Then you go now where my dad currently lives. It's all Hispanic. And then you go to the other one, and then it's like, then you have completely like A-leaf. You have almost completely black. And so Houston is just, people don't believe it, by the way. They really don't believe me when I tell them this. And I've had friends, by the way, from out of town and even out of country, like visit me before. And they're always like, bro, this does not seem real. Is it really? Is it really this like segregated? And it's like, yeah, dude, it is, man. It's weird. Um, and it's not just a wealth thing too, Just Houston is just that way. I can't explain it, man. I've been to basically everywhere else in America, by the way. Not like every city, but I'm saying like all the major places in America I've been. And my experience has always been, wow, Houston, we're such a weird city by comparison. Like, I'm sure maybe some other cities feel that way too, like LA or New York, or, like blah, 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 like, Miami, like, I'm sure, like, that kind of stuff. When does the stream start? It's not gonna start, sorry. We making it out of the hood playing Toontown. The making it out of the hood things make me laugh so much, dude. That's the thing is like I'm hood to the core, like, and what I mean by that is it like for people wondering and listening to this, like looking at me, seeing a white skinned dude being like, what does the hood even mean, right? Um, to talk about it in, because everyone else has their own recollection of what the hood is, like. So my dad's from the border. He grew up the border for 17, 18 years. And when he came to Houston and, had us as a, family and da 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 da, my dad was always super hard, like hard on, like, you guys need to be safe. You guys need to, he put me in martial arts without a choice as a kid. Just always toughened me up, and I never understood why. And it turns out it's because my dad's from the projects on the border, which for those who've ever been to the border or know about the border, imagine the projects. Because that's something that I always thought was interesting, is when I would read about people talk about their experiences in the projects, sometimes it actually didn't even seem that bad. Like, I'd read the stories and I'd be like, huh, this is kind of cool. People have a community, But it was because, like, my dad's experience growing up was the projects on the border. So it's just a little bit harsher of an experience. And so growing up, coming to Houston, we didn't have a lot of money, needless to say. So that's kind of why I think I got the experiences that I did in terms of being ghetto. Is because I was poor. So needless to say, growing up around slang a lot kind of made it a more normal way for me to speak. And the funny thing is like, this was so bad that in middle school, my teacher sat me down and she said, Justin, I don't understand it. She says, you're a fantastic writer. This is still kind of true today. She says, "You're a fantastic writer." She's like, "Your grammar is horrible." Like, she's like, most kids here can do the grammar part. She's like, "You are struggling with the grammar part, and yet, like, for example, I would write you because I was so terminally online and so ghetto, you know, I would write literally you. I'm not kidding, guys. I would actually write you instead of you. And I didn't actually see what the problem was growing up." So that's a funny story I love to tell people. My teacher sat me down and she's basically like, "Why are you an idiot?" No, but realistically, the point that I'm trying to make is that people have different skills, and when you're born around people that aren't so language proficient, you kind of develop those habits. And in my case, it almost became like a badge of honor to speak like where you're from, right? For people that are aware of this, you know what I'm talking about. Which is just like where certain dialects, even when, no matter where you are in the world, not just the US, of course, you might have certain things that people can identify. In America, it's less like the accent in a sense, and it's more like the manner of speaking. And for example, the two best examples I always give people, if you want to know how people from Houston sound, listen to Scarface and listen to Megan Thee Stallion. That's how we sound. It's not a stereotype. It's true. Like, one of my best friends, actually, he's a cop in California, and that's exactly how he sounds. He's the whitest guy you'll ever meet. But he sounds like Megan Thee Stallion for some reason. Anyway, you guys ever heard of Jason Williams? That's my Jason Williams. All right, that was a funny ass tangent. DC. Oh, I hear. So Israel, I've heard that DC is a lot like that, actually. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So one of the guys that I follow in the MMA space, Luke Thomas, he's big DC guy. He actually talks about that a lot. And one of my friends, Zoe, is from that area, and they've actually told me the same thing, that it has a similar kind of vibe, and it's also super cultured as well. So, and I even hear it's more cultured than Houston, because Houston is like only a couple cultures. Like you know, like for example, if you're gonna talk about like different African cultures, you're only gonna get like maybe Nigerians. You know, like I'm trying to think who else. Like Nigerians are kind of the main ones in Houston. For Asians, you're gonna have Vietnamese, Korean, but primarily Vietnamese and Chinese, and bigger populations than Korean. So it's just like, I'm obsessed with culture. Like, this can make people uncomfortable sometimes. Like, literally, I've made people uncomfortable just by being interested in culture. But I often find that it's because people are used to the interest in culture being surrounded by inflammatory things, or like being degrading, or some kind of like narrative. Whereas like, if you think about me, my interest is in online gaming and online worlds, and people connecting within these online worlds, people that are real people within these online worlds, right? These virtual worlds. And part of that is the exchange of culture. It's the exchange of languages. It's the exchange of play styles and personalities. And that's what I love so much about online gaming. So same thing about, you know, history. My love for history is my love for people and the study of people. So it's like a straight line for me all the way through all of that stuff. Hey, I appreciate that, Zakeem. I did make it, man. I did make it, man. I appreciate that. And meaning, like, to be clear to people, I don't make that much money. I've been clear about this. Go to Social Blade. You can see how much money I make. I don't make that much. I made more when I was working in corporate construction, but I hated my fucking life when I was working in corporate construction. I hated my work, and pretty much hated everyone that I worked with, which I'll tell more stories about that sometime, because that was a Fortune 500 company. So it taught me a lot of experiences. And it's also kind of why I chuckle whenever I see people say, "Oh, you're just the gaming guy." It's like, I mean, that's one way to look at it. But it's like, I mean, I also did other things before this, and I was good at them too. So it's not like I'm just the gaming guy, you know? I have other things that I'm interested in and was interested in. because I needed to make money. I wasn't making money off of gaming as a kid. I was only supporting my habit. So the way that I was able to afford playing and buying more games was by selling my accounts and selling things in the games. But it never really made me more money than that. Maybe later on it did, but not early on for sure. I was just supporting my habit. But yeah, so quick story actually. Since we're in the, we always have like every stream we talk about the origin stories, but it's always like a different angle. And this is a joke that Des and I have made back and forth, is that I should just make one giant video with every chapter in that video and then just link it every time. But it's also just fun for people to learn more, excuse me, about you. Is the whole like made it out really does not just mean a lot to me because of the whole story I told you about my dad, but it's also like I told you guys that my best friend growing up was black. Like, he didn't make it out, you know, on some real shit, as they say. He didn't make it out. He got involved in drugs, buying, selling, you name it. Got sent to jail, came out. They, you know, my friends tried to give him a intervention, and he took all the money and just went back to what he was doing. And yeah, so, you know, on some real shit. That's why it does matter so much to me to talk about that stuff sometimes. Is, yeah, I have some survivor's guilt. If you guys aren't familiar with what that is, I'll explain it. Survivor's guilt's when you always wonder, why did you make it out? And yeah, I wonder that a lot. Why did I make it out? You know, my friend Clarence, he was smart. He was capable. He was like T-Mac on the court, you know? Just a super loyal friend. I mean, honestly, would do anything for you. And did, many times for me. But yeah. Anyway, shout out to Clarence. I hope with some shred of a possibility that he's doing better, but the chances are probably not. So yeah, sometimes people don't make it, man. And no matter what you do, you can't bring them with you. Can't fix them. It sucks. But yeah, you learn that when you've been through some shit. By the way, found you on YouTube a year ago. You're one of my favorite creators, man. You helped me to get to sleep so many times I can't count. So I've chose in my life to take that as a compliment, but man, I've been told that so many times that I've always wondered, do people just find me relaxing? Or do they find me so boring that I put them to sleep? Wait, you made a guns video. Can you K-style, Nerd Slayer? I mean, these days? Probably not. If you give me, you know, about a day or two of practicing, yeah, I could. The thing about me, you know, here's my chance to flex. I don't just get picked for all the games QA testing and haven't historically been picked for them just because I play a lot. I think it's also because I'm really good. Like, I'll just say that. So Guild Wars 2, in my opinion, has arguably one of the best combat systems and hardest combat systems in MMOs. Darkfall is another one. I was very good at both of these games. I was a professional player at Guild Wars 2. It's why most MMOs for me are not very challenging. It's because not just that I've been playing them for a long time, knowledge does matter, don't discredit that, but it's also that I have the mechanical ability to pull it off. And as I've talked about before, that came from my obsession with Halo growing up. I really have to give my obsession with Halo. It might sound weird because I grew up playing StarCraft, so you might say, well, how come StarCraft didn't teach you, you know, why didn't StarCraft teach you more mechanics? I think I was just too young and I sucked. Honestly, I just sucked. Halo is what taught me mechanics, and it was because I was obsessed with glitching. And I've shown it on stream before, and I've shown clips before that I'm pretty good at it. And, you know, when you talk about frames and how much window of opportunity it takes to do the BXR, which is the hit with a fire, or the double shot, the BXR I think takes between 0.2 and 0.4, right? So we're talking like about half a second.
and more so about half a second. The double shot is like a third of a second. And it was funny. I was jumped back into Halo one day, just messing around, having a good time, and I was hitting every glitch. And that's the thing, is it's just like when you've practiced certain glitches and certain mechanics so much, they become second nature to you. But it also develops your ability to have mechanical skill in the first place. So then it becomes easier not just to remember the synapses in my nervous system, so I can remember the things that I need to do. Kind of like you never forget how to ride a bike, right? But it's also with the fact that if you've pushed the limits in a game, like for example, Guild Wars 2 or Darkfall, these are very mechanical MMOs, the most mechanical by far. All the other games are kind of easy mechanically, right? Because like you've gotten to where the ceiling is and hasn't been beaten yet, right? And so that ends up helping you have a better understanding of the things that come before it. So in a sense, it might sound like I'm talking about how amazing I am, but this is an important lesson of like why it is important to have a skill in general, is that that skill likely can transfer to other skills. For example, video game skill will transfer likely to other video games. But not just that. Maybe your skill at video games makes you better at solving puzzles. Maybe solving puzzles is something you do in your job. That's what I used to do, actually. I worked in estimation. It was kind of like problem solving, puzzle solving, and that helped me a lot, right? Maybe other people have other types of jobs where it gives them some type of benefit, right? But I think that, speaking for myself, part of what makes me unique and why I took the moniker Nerdslayer is because I am good. And I don't talk about that a lot, and I don't always bring that up in my videos. And the times that I do, it really triggers people, which is so funny to me. Like the Overwatch video, when I was mentioning that I was top 500, people were like, yeah, you used to be top 500. You're not top 500 in Overwatch 2. It's like, okay, like relax. I know I'm not, but like, you don't think I could get there? What's the argument here? That I'm not as good anymore, so my opinion doesn't matter? Were you ever top 500 in anything? Like it's just, what you find is that when you talk about skill and how good you are at something, if there's no utility to it and you're just bragging or you're just like being arrogant, then yeah, people are going to try to knock you down a peg. I think that that's just human nature. But when you're just like, for example, in my videos, I've brought it up for 10 seconds or 30 seconds. Like, hey, I used to be like a good player at this game. And people were like, wow, you always have to brag about being such a good gamer. It's like, bro, relax, man. Like, if you ever heard of this thing called credibility, credibility does matter if you're good at something, right? Meaning that if I'm good at something that I'm explaining, my credibility does matter more. And the reason why it matters more to me personally, I was actually just talking to one of my friends about this recently, is because when I got into the idea of wanting to make content, that was very young in my life. I was a very young kid watching videos, watching reviews. And the initial reason that I wanted to get involved is actually so petty that I love it. It's so internet edgy, and that's what I was and am still, which is that I would watch MMO reviewers review games, and media outlets like, all the major ones, IGN, GameSpot, Game Informer, all the major outlets everybody knows, GameSpy back then. And these reviews were so bad. Oh my God, these guys did not know how to play. It wasn't just a bad review, like objectively, because they didn't play enough or they didn't like look at the certain, correct things. It was also like, I would watch a lot of the times and they would just literally suck at the game so badly that it's just like, well, no wonder why you don't like the game. And people act like that doesn't matter. It does matter. And it used to drive me insane. And trust me, most of the MMO audience back then was kind of boomers and stuff. So most of them would yell at me and say, shut up, young kid, nobody cares. But do you want to know why it mattered? Do you want to know how I made my young career in MMOs as a young kid, going up against 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds and smashing them? Because I actually knew how to play the games. And people might say, yeah, but you didn't know the intricacies of the economy and the strategic of the, did I probably know any of that shit? No. Did I know how to click button to make guy go boom? Yeah. and I knew how to do it better than most of the boomer people. So this is part of my origin story of why I became Nerd Slayer. Before that, I was X-Force. Before that, I was Obliterator. I always had these very adversarial kind of names, and it was because that's how I viewed myself when I came into this space. I was the console kid that people were like, oh, this console kid, thinks he's so good, like kind of like approach. But it was because like the number one thing that I was beating players with in MMOs when I was like 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old. You want to know what it was? It was the fact that I could actually control my character. So for people that aren't aware of this, there are multiple ways to control your character in an MMO. Hey, a nice segue into my next segment, which is going to be answering common questions in MMOs. But anyway, damn, what was I saying before that? Because I just remembered about starting from the beginning on the MMO question stuff. Oh, that's right. Was talking about me as a youngin', how I was beating these adults. So in MMOs, when you move your character, especially back in the day, most of the games were actually point to click, right? Excuse me. So you would point and click your character, and your character would run over there. Or you would click a button on your mouse, and your character would run to that direction. That was kind of how most MMOs or MUDs or early online virtual worlds were played. Well, eventually people were like, we need more control of our character. And so they came up with WASD or WASD movement. WASD movement was like a huge deal because it was like suddenly now you have this idea that you can move directionally. Well, MMOs went a step further, and now you could do stuff like strafing, right? They had strafe commands. And then you could even like turn, and because it's a 3D game, you could turn all the way around. You could about face. All these little movement things that started to now be basically opened up because the games were 3D. Well, something that I noticed at a very, very young age, probably like, I started playing MMOs when I was, let's see, it is 2024. The first time I ever played Habbo Hotel was 2001. No, Dark Eden, then Habbo Hotel. I always forget what the order of those were, but it was 2001 or 2002. That was about 23 years ago. I'm 30. So, needless to say, I started when I was 7. And after Dark Eden, the game I got into, Galaxies. So, for people saying like, oh, but those aren't super massive, it's like, yeah, but I played one right after. And I was playing that as, a very young kid. And playing those games, something that I noticed is that when I went to Galaxies is that in order to actually aim your attacks, the concept of tab target actually is having the character within your view. So meaning that it never was about just being able to auto lock onto characters. It's more about like a convenient way to target somebody while also being able to look at them. In many ways, it was essentially a limitation of the early combat systems. It was just easier to target with multiple targets by tab targeting. Now, the problem is that whenever you start to have players combat against each other, this gets thrown out of whack because most players are used to fighting against creatures that just stand still. And so when they fight, they can just run up behind them or like stun them, run up behind them, or just stand there and just beat on them the whole time without having to move. But when you go into PvP situations, that's not the case anymore. So suddenly everybody's moving around. Sorry, I gotta go to the restroom, but let me finish this point. Everybody's moving around. So suddenly I was able to move around behind people or on the side of them, and they couldn't hit me anymore. And that simple thing turned me into like a PvP legend. Now I'm known on the internet as a PvPer. And I mean, not really from those times, but I was known, of course, in my community and the different games that I played for being a big PvPer. And it was funny because it was like, all I would do is like run in circles around people. And that was enough to set me apart. All right, let me be right back. Okay. I'm back. Yeah, so that's relevant because basically the gameplay level in MMOs was so low that me coming into them with just like some, relatively decent competitive experience before that in Halo, I was able to basically just like stomp most of the players mechanically. And a lot of the time, and I still remember it to this day, I would put out threads where I would even, I've been trying to teach people about this stuff for probably like 20 years. No joke, since WoW came out. Because I remember WoW came out and it was like, I was shocked at how many people still didn't understand that stuff when I had already been playing the games for 3 years at that point. And so I remember I would always try to explain to people like, hey, like, just so you know, like, if you keyboard turn, you're not going to be able to hit a good player. And people would literally hate me because of that. I still remember this kind of stuff. I would get hated because of stuff like that. And now it's a universal sign of being a casual player if you keyboard turn. Sorry if you keyboard turn, but just means you're a casual player. Like, there's no other way around that. Like, and I'm not saying casual in terms of effort, or rather playtime. I'm saying casual in terms of the effort you're willing to give, because it's a inherently inferior way to play the game. It only really works if your characters are standing still. So, this is the kind of stuff that used to get me hated when I talked more in that kind of way. And for people wondering why do you have to be so incendiary about it? To be honest, the reason why is because people don't care about MMO gameplay. They just don't. This has been a problem for ages. When I hear people tell me, but Final Fantasy XIV is the best Final Fantasy game, and I said, guys, I haven't played a game with worse Final Fantasy gameplay in the Final Fantasy franchise since probably like 5 or 6, you know what I'm saying? Like, which Final Fantasy game has worse combat? If you want to argue story, conveniently, anybody want to argue combat? Because if you say anything before or anything that's won an award Final Fantasy wise, I'm sorry, I don't take you seriously. It's better than 10. The sphere grid system? The overdrive system? Nah, I'm not buying it. It's better than 10 too, switching your class on the go? I don't know. Is it? Maybe, logically. But is it more fun? Is it more inventive? Is it more active than the system that 8 had? That 9 had? 9 had active battling. So did 12. Is it faster than those games? It's actually not. Is it faster than 13? Actually isn't. I've played all of them. I'm that one weird Final Fantasy guy that's actually played the Final Fantasy games besides just 14. And yeah, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, because people didn't and don't care about gameplay a lot of the time, it ends up creating these like weird pseudo arguments where we're like in a fantasy land where we think that we're like comparable to any other genre. We're not. We're not. We have not been cutting edge in gameplay, and dude, I don't even know if I'm being honest, guys. Maybe in 1993 with AOL's Neverwinter Nights. But like literally, when has MMOs or virtual worlds, or any virtual world, so not even just massive, but like, when have we ever been first in class gameplay wise? Just haven't. And that's a problem. And I think early on it was okay because a lot of the games we didn't have the technology to run stuff very well. And simultaneously, many of the early gamers were more so interested in role-playing and the challenge of the environments more so than fighting against each other in some more like obvious ways. And I'm not trying to say that like nobody liked PvP back in the day. That's not true. Like earliest games are PvP, but the point that I'm making is that I think that was less common, of a thing than it is now. And now it's like combat and gameplay and PvP is so even Final Fantasy XIV has PvP, right? It's so common in all of these online games, and yet our combat and gameplay still sucks in the majority of them. Like Guild Wars 2 by far out of the active games right now has the best combat system. And again, people can talk about opinions. I'm willing to have discussions about opinions. Like Guild Wars 2 has everyone beat in every category. It's not just action. It's also in terms of counter ability. It's also in terms of class composition. They kind of have every MMO beat in almost every single category. Then why is Guild Wars 2 not more known famously for its gameplay? You want to know the sad reason? Because it's too fucking hard. It's too hard, bro. They made a game that's just too difficult. That's a beautiful thing for players like me, you know? Or for other players who love that kind of stuff. But Guild Wars 2 is too difficult for like 75% of the MMO audience, which tells you that we're not ready for these kinds of games yet. So what's the solution, Justin? Just don't make them? My solution is to do what Arcade did. Is to find a way to do them both, right? So you can onboard the old geezers like me. I'm including myself, don't worry, I like to play Guild Wars 1 as well. It's nothing like Guild Wars 2, by the way. It's like the oldest geezer game you could even play. Guild Wars 2 is like the complete opposite. It's like the most like jock version of a game you can play. You have to be the most athletic in that game. I love both style of game. The problem is I think MMO should be both. Could you just be one? Sure. And I would support that. Do your thing. I'm not gonna like shit on that. But I'm just saying I think ideally to have the biggest like reach, you need to do both. You need to have some fastness to your game, but you also need to have some like big brain moments. Like look at like WoW, for example. I know people like to hate on that game a lot, but I actually am very high on its combat system. Do I think it always has the best balance and so on and so forth? No. But do I think that it has a very good combat system? Yeah, it does. You know what's going to happen. Visual identifier is very clear. Concepts of each ability and class, very clear. The way that you customize your character, fairly simple, right? And yet there's still a lot of skill there. I've played at the gladiator levels before, and there is a lot of skill mechanically in WoW. People just don't know about it, right? Like if you're trinketing at the wrong times, if you're reflecting at the wrong times, if you don't know how to reflect or don't have macros to reflect, if you're not playing with macros, like in WoW at the top PvP levels, you're gonna get completely annihilated. Like it's not gonna be close. And that's the level of competition in those games. So I think that sometimes it's almost forgotten about because that level of play is so niche that like most of the audience is playing a very easy pared down version of the game. And so we don't really have the awareness of what it's like to play WoW at the highest levels, right? Most of us. So we don't know that WoW actually can be this incredibly difficult game. But, you know, over the years has become more simple. Guild Wars 2 never did that. Guild Wars 2 never made its gameplay simpler. It never changed the core gameplay. It never revamped the class to make them simpler. It's basically remains steadfast in the fact that it is the game that it is. And that's what I love about Guild Wars 2, is it is just the game that it is. They know it's hard. And to be clear, is it easy to fix that? No. This is the joke I've made to Mighty Teapot, and even he agrees with me. They accidentally made like the best gameplay possible to the point to where most people can't actually enjoy it. So it's like a damn, that was awesome kind of situation. You know what I'm saying? It's like you celebrate, but you're also like, okay, that was also awesome. And by the way, there's no delay. I rant a lot. Relaxing voice, but the content's been so interesting I don't actually fall asleep. Okay, well that's good. What came first, the anime PFP or the... Remember, I misspelled my name. When I named myself Obliterator, I misspelled my name. Hilariously. I spelled it, Obliterator. How's it going, Quinny? What Quinny is that, by the way? I have a lot of Quinny homies. Not that I'm gonna judge you as less or more than any of them, but just curious. Which Quinn homie is that? Also, don't people make fun of game journalists being... Yeah, but not in MMOs. Remember, not only did they barely even cover MMOs, most people sucked at MMOs. So they weren't capable of actually fraud checking these players. Just being honest. Like, Guild Wars 2 is a great example of this. Why do you say that it's such a difficult game? Because they've done statistical studies. And they found that, like, the top 10% does more damage than the entirety of the rest of the game. No, I didn't make that up. That's real. And the other thing, too, about the journalists, and the reason why do I get touchy about journalists, too? Because they are also players, but they're players with a massive megaphone. So here's what a journalist can do that can actually basically misrepresent a situation. I'll just describe what they did with Guild Wars 2. So during Guild Wars 2, journalists were invited early on. You can find very early impressions of it, but you have to look very closely. Journalists were invited to play Guild Wars 2. All the journalists from your favorite outlets, or not so favorite outlets. But anyway, they were all invited. And I think they were given the choice to play different classes, or they might have just been given a class and kind of explained like the skinny of what it is. Then they went and did dungeons. And for people that have played Guild Wars 2 now, you're like, oh, dungeons, bro. That's now. Dungeons now are considered a joke. But here's the problem, guys, and why what I'm saying matters, and it's not just being elite gamer, which even if it is, fuck yeah, because that's what MMOs are about. But it's because they started writing articles about it, crying about it, not just saying, oh wow, it was difficult, we suck at the game, and we also have no player coordination. No, what they did is they spun this story, bro, this game's too difficult, nobody's gonna play this game. And it created a giant scare. Guess what Guild Wars 2 did right before launch? Nerfed every dungeon in the game. Oh, but what's the problem? Now everybody can play the dungeons, right? What's the problem? I'll tell you. The problem is, those dungeons were supposed to prepare you for the raids. And the things that came later on. They don't prepare you anymore. That's why most people don't play the in-game content, like the strikes and the raids, because they're just too difficult for most players. There's no like slow onboard, and they've gotten better at it. I'm not trying to rag on them for the same things that I've said before, because they've put out expansions, they've gotten better, but you get the point that I'm making. He seems like he's on time for me, yeah, because Des knows I'm late as shit. FF11 has the best everything, fight me. Oh damn, Defcope, I forgot what your previous question was. I'm gonna scroll up because I don't remember what it was. Someone got me with the whole we're making it out of the hood, making it out the hood with Toontown Online. That shit, that shit was funny as fuck. Is this your full-time job, or do you get paid beating up grannies in the ring as well? This is my full-time job. That being said, to kind of go, I guess to, I'm fucking retarded, sorry. And I mean, like, to be clear, if people think that that's a slur, I actually am on the spectrum and I do have brain issues, so relax. I'm allowed to say factual, true, sometimes hurtful statements about myself. Anyway, what I wanted to show you guys is another one of my passions that a lot of people don't know about. If you watch my stream, you've had to have heard about this at some point. Here we go. This is me. And ignore that photo over there. I'm not naked or anything like that. So here's me with no gloves, just working bare hand. Let me go ahead and mute it. I wanted you guys to hear me cracking it, but yeah, so I like to hit the bag bare hand a lot. So I've been doing martial arts longer than I've been playing video games, and more seriously too. However, martial arts was like the thing I did in the real world, if you will, and video games was what I did in my other time. So yeah, like that question is a good question because the answer is actually at some point I will have it be both. Some old footage of me, some more old footage of me. Here's some more recent footage of me 12 weeks ago. But yeah, so martial arts is a big love of mine. And while it started off, like I mentioned, as not having a choice, my dad was just like, look, you're mixed race. People are going to kick your ass for no reason. So I'm going to put you in martial arts. And I'm thankful that he did that, by the way. That's something that a lot of people can't understand. And if you don't, I don't blame you, but just know that I come from a little bit of a different walk of life. But anyway, I couldn't help that fact. So let me put this over here so I can actually read the chat. And I devoted like insane amount, the same amount of time that I spent playing MMOs and, becoming obsessed with those. I would argue that I've put the same amount of time in martial arts. And for me, if you're wondering, what are your interests? Like, it's a form of expression for me. It's art for me. But at the same time, what I love about martial arts is that it's about the underdog. It's about the outcast. It's about the misfit. And that's just the same thing I love about MMOs. So I found myself, something that exists in two different like walks of life that actually makes me feel connected, if that makes sense. So for example, whenever I'm in the gym with all the people at my gym, I just feel great. Like, do we have like things happen sometimes? Yeah, every now and then, like very rarely though. And I'm talking about all throughout my history. Generally speaking, when I'm at the gym, I feel like I'm at peace. I feel like I'm in church. I feel like I'm just hanging out. It's it's something that most people can't understand because it's loud and people are hitting shit and yelling. But for me, I can fall asleep in there. And we used to do lock-ins when I was a kid in my gym where we would fall asleep in the gym. So just like I love martial arts. I grew up doing karate and taekwondo. And then I came back to martial arts when I was like 18, started doing Muay Thai and boxing. And more recently now, I grapple more so. But as you can see, this is recent footage. That's because I still practice stand-up, still love it, right? And still practice it quite frequently. And for me, it's not just like art. It's not just expression. It's also like, it's kind of like it makes me feel protected, As somebody who's had PTSD as a kid, martial arts just makes me feel like I'm regulating myself because I always have energy. I always have the desire to want to hit things. Sorry, it's just true about me. So I just go hit things like this. So it's a lot more. But to go back to Death Cope's question, my goal is to be a trainer someday and to have my own gym. And my goal is to do that within like the next 5 or 6 years. But right now I'm getting my black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a blue belt, hopefully going to be a purple belt soon. I've been doing stand-up pretty much my whole life. So I keep practicing it, not just because I want to get the skills, but I also want to be able to still teach, still have the skill so people don't just look at me like some old guy that used to be able to do things. And so on and so forth. Yeah, so that's one of my big goals. So I'll be one of the few, maybe one of the only martial art gamer YouTubers that exist. Because of course I'll have maybe a side channel to go with this channel, but that will talk about my gym, me traveling and training at places because I love to travel the country and train at different gyms. I've done that. I've done it in every country I've been to pretty much. I always end up training there. That's like tourism for me as a martial artist, is like training somewhere. Yeah, so I love martial arts, but I don't make a living out of it currently. And when I do teach people, it's just, being helpful and teaching people in the gym. And I've had people pay me for like stand-up stuff before, but not really in any like serious way. If anything, I'm more of like, if you just like give me something to eat, I'll teach you some things. Yeah, like if you watch the footage that I have on screen, what you'll notice if you have any experience watching this stuff is that I've been doing this for a long time. Because I change my styles a lot, and I'm very analytical with thinking about the things that I am doing. For example, that's the David Benavides combination. So is this one actually coming up in a little bit? By the way, this is 2 weeks ago because I'm huge right now. I'll be honest, I'm huge right now. Because I've been really working on getting like as big and strong as I can, just so I can take care of my body. Yes, I'm a big boy right now, but in a good way. But yeah, this is what I do pretty much whenever I'm not doing gaming stuff or talking about gaming stuff. I punch or I do grappling stuff. And yeah, it's just the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. Good question. Okay, let me fast forward to the part where I'm really cracking it. I know it's this one. Oh no, wait. No. Huh. Can't remember which one it is. I have one where I just was going crazy on it. All right, here we go. That ain't it. Damn, I guess I don't have it up here. But anyway, you guys get the point. So if it ever seems like I'm super confrontational and you think that I'm angry, the chances are I'm probably not. Am I confrontational? Yes. Am I angry about it? Probably not. Probably actually excited. I enjoy it. Both because confrontation is always seen as a negative thing, especially in today's society. But confrontation isn't always fighting. Sometimes it's also like believing in something and being willing to tell somebody, hey, I believe in this. That might create a confrontation at times, right? Where somebody else says, screw you, I don't believe in that, right? That's cool to see that everybody used voice chat growing up. I'm glad to see that stuff, even if people had issues and stuff. That was awesome to read. I'm catching up right now. The Blind Rouge. I don't know any Final Fantasy that I enjoy for the gameplay. Oof. Night Online? Ooh, that's an old one, Zakeem. I love the strategy about Guild Wars 1. As a Guild Wars 1 homer, I mean, after Galaxies, it was Guild Wars 1 for me. So it was like, I went from like, I played them at the same time now that I think about it, but I mean, in terms of the timeline. So I became obsessed with Guild Wars 1. It's probably like the first game that I really, like online game, that I actually had like a lot of time to play. And it's because my uncle would just let me play at his house. Shout out to my uncle, by the way, because he's a big reason why I'm even here. What are my thoughts on BDO's combat? It looks like it's good. The problem with combats like BDO is that it actually is heavily reliant on invuln frames and moments like that. So what ends up happening is that the gameplay just becomes a wait and see until the other person lands the CC, then they all jump in and go for the kill. And that's kind of like the epitome of how the gameplay ends up being. The other issue about BDO's combat is it looks like it's action combat, but it actually isn't. And I did my video where I talked about not liking the game. I talked about it in that game. That the hitbox to aim, if you're going to talk about a hard aim in a physics-based game, is always going to be wherever the model is, right? But in tab target games, it doesn't work that way. The hitboxes are going to extend out, right? Maybe even out here. The problem is in BDO, it is supposed to be an action game, yet it has, I think I showed in the video, extensions out like here. Entire out like lines. So meaning that it's giving you insane amount of leeway in order to land your shots, which means that landing your shots is not really like what the game's about. Like, let's just be honest, right? And then the other thing about the game is that the game, this is a hilarious thing about the game, it's actually FPS reliant and ping reliant. So meaning that it's a client-side game. So the better computer you have, faster you can run the game, the better you'll perform in PvP. That's a true statement. You can go look it up. It's a big problem that the game suffers from. How do I feel about hybrid turn-based combat systems, something like Transistor? I don't think I'm the guy to talk about that stuff. And what I mean is like, it's not my style of combat that I enjoy that much. But yeah, I think so. My idea is how to bridge the gap is make the difference visible so other people can see you and mimic you. Yeah, and Eleanor, that used to happen more in PvP. So Guild Wars 1 did a good job of onboarding people. Why did Guild Wars 2 fail? Well, for starters, Guild Wars 2 is way harder. Mechanically, to be clear. Because Guild Wars 1 is a big brain game. Guild Wars 2 is a big brain game, plus you have to have fast fingers. So that's the difficulty, is that the games don't actually play the same way. They're pretty different because of that. Because now, even if you're a big brain, the amount of time you have to make your decision is short. So suddenly you can't even play the game that well, right? Versus somebody who's just like, you know, super quick, might be stupid, but they could make a better decision faster than you could, right? And maybe that's all they need to do. So what Guild Wars 1 did, though, is it had a good tutorial system, and it had a spectator system on its Hall of Fame top 100. So during GVG matches, which Guild Wars 2 didn't do for some dumb reason. Anyway, Guild Wars 1 would have GVG matches. You could watch these matches. And that's how I learned how to play, is by watching GVG matches. Anyone else here probably learned very similarly. You could watch other types of games too, but I was watching GVG or Hall of Heroes personally. And you learned a lot from watching that stuff. And also they had bot PvP. Another thing that it's just stuff like that is missing, and people think it's all, oh, why does it matter? It does matter. It really does. Have you played Bladesworn and new Necrosword in Guild Wars 2? No, but I've been tempted to. My thing about Guild Wars 2 is that conditions are just infinitely more exciting to me. And to be clear, Guild Wars 1 was the same way for me. So maybe I'm just biased because of Guild Wars 1. To me, what makes Guild Wars unique, besides the combat system in Guild Wars 2 being really cool, is the condition system. Like, it's really cool and really well fleshed out. Hey, NS, thoughts about TNL overhaul and launch in Korea? So somebody actually came and asked this in chat. And so here are my thoughts. I hear that the game has a 0.4% play rate in PC Bangs and PC Bangs, my bad, in Korea right now, which is not that bad. I mean, it's like, I think like a 10th of something like Overwatch, right? That being said, MMOs during the first couple of months, after the dreaded drop-off, always, nearly every single one has done that. So we can just predict that it's going to happen. So TL will have a downpour. The problem is that their uptick isn't that high. And here's another problem. NCSoft has proven that when their games don't do well in Korea, they don't give a fuck about them. And I think a lot of Westerners are smarter and hipper to that now. So if they look and they see that TL is going to fail in Korea, I think that even less support is going to come for TL in the West. I just don't think that the overhaul and changes were enough. And also, public perception matters so much in online games because these are basically worlds. And how I like to describe that is like, if I want to get somebody to come into my shop, here are a couple of ways I don't want them to come into my shop. Damn, shop's cramped, sucks, they don't have selection, fucking overpriced. I don't want those to be things in public perception. What I want them to be saying is, fucking game's awesome, game's free, game gives you a lot, you don't have to pay, game's fucking cool. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want. Speaking of MMO or online RPGs, how is it that Warframe has been alive for 10 plus years now and many squad shooter live service games have already died? Well, for starters, Warframe was created by, little known fact, but created by one of the original creators of Unreal. So the guy was very talented and actually the owner of the company itself, the CEO at the time. So the guy that made the game was very capable, very smart, and had a good record. So that's probably a good reason why, right? He made one of the greatest shooters of all time. The other thing is that Warframe doesn't try to pretend to be massive. So I think it focusing on the specific parts that it focused on before anybody else was really calling that out is probably why I got so much success. And to be clear, I'm talking about the West. The East is made up almost exclusively of online RPGs. They don't have that many massive games. It's the West that's more of like learning about the strength of not being massive anymore. I mean, honestly, the Westerners, we've been behind for probably... I'm gonna say like 15 years. Like, it's been a minute, guys. Full retard is not a job. True. You're right. My bad. Hey, I love your content and really enjoyed seeing old MMOs and MOs being played, featured, like Lineage 2, Terra, and PSO or PSU. Looking forward to more videos. I'll do a PSU video too, by the way. And thanks, by the way. I appreciate that. I love when I see people lately, especially using MO more recently. I was even seeing it out in the wild, like... Do I fight? I mean, I grapple. I don't really consider that fighting anymore, but did I fight? Yes, I did. Any specific martial arts practices, styles that I'm devoted to? At the moment, it would be jiu-jitsu. But also, I also like to, wrestle. I also like judo, so I just call it grappling. And then for stand-up, I'm probably the most interested in karate and Muay Thai. You ever train capoeira? Just for fun, but nothing serious, to be honest. Hey, I've lived in tons of places that are like that. It's why I have to go to the gym, in fact. I've tried putting bags in places that I've been at, and it just does not work. With how heated you get on some discussions, kind of scary that you're a weapon. Yeah, but when I get heated, like, you're probably talking about discussions off stream, because, like, on stream, I've only ever had, like, one heated... Like, remember when that guy came in and was just, like, being an idiot? I think that was heated. But relatively speaking, we haven't had any like heated stream moments. I think I'm the most heated on Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube. And I would say that in the order of most like trolly annoying would be Twitter. Incendiary, like you're an idiot, would be Reddit. And kind of a mixture of both would be YouTube. And to explain that a little bit, whenever you see me like going in on somebody in those exchanges, I'm going in on them like this, or like this, or like this, or like, or maybe a slight smiley, meaning that it's fun for me. The internet actually is a sport for me in a sense. Like, I treat it like a sport, meaning that I don't really take it that seriously, especially lately. When I was first making it on YouTube, I was reading every comment, and I still do, but I was reading every comment back then and actually trying to take them seriously. It just doesn't work. And so over time, you get exposed to so many of the same comments, but also just a lot of people that don't have anything of value to say, that what you realize is that the way that the medium works is that you continue to create content and people consume that. Now, that might seem like that person who's consuming your content is then a fan per se, or is more so... No, let's leave it at that, is a fan. The reason why I say per se is that what you often find, and you learn this sometimes the hard way as an artist, and it's kind of like sad actually when you learn this, but you learn that like most people are actually like are fans of your art. They don't give a fuck about you. I mean, like some people are like literally will say, I don't give a fuck about this. Make me a video, dude. Like, people really do feel that way. And I know many people here probably feeling like, hey, that's not me. Okay, fair enough. But like, I'm talking about the kind of player base or kind of player that I'm talking about, which is like, for them, that is how they see it. They see it as like, well, I don't need to be a fan of the person. I don't need to learn about the person. I don't need to connect with the person. And what that creates is actually a lot of basically stupid discussion and bad dialogue. And what I mean is that it's a lot of people pretending they know me or another creator while not taking any effort to actually get to know me. And that's like a bizarre thing for me. Like, again, people here don't really relate to that because your guys, I'm getting to know you from this stream. I know, that's why I'm doing these streams. That's why I like doing them. And it's why I enjoy you guys being here, so we can get to know each other. But other people who are just consuming my content, they don't get to know me from that, really, right? They're getting very like, they're getting the very analytical, like almost robotic version of me. And the funny thing about that is like, that's just one part of me. It's not all of me. So that's, I think, is what surprises people the most, is that when they see me shitpost shit on somebody or make fun of some guy for being an idiot, that they look at that and they think, but isn't this the cold, calm, and collected detective who never is rattled or never faces? It's like, okay, first off, that's like a weird stereotype people have like invented later in life, which is that, like, to be clear, pretty much every famous detective is an asshole. Like, sorry. I said that in one of my videos, but you go to a detective not because they're nice. You go to a detective because they're talking about shit that you want them to talk about that maybe other people don't want to talk about, right? And that's something that I'm very proud about. I'm always going to talk about online gaming because it means so much to me. So I have a dog in this race, if you will. And so when people come at me and they're very much like incendiary, or they just offer very stupid critiques, like recently I've gotten some stupid comments because I was sick my last 2 videos. I got comments that were talking about me using a voice modulator. I just want you guys to see the stupidity on my face and see me facepalm so you can see this is the kind of reactions I get. Does this look like anger or rage? No, it's more of like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? That's how I react to a lot of this stuff. It's like, what? What do you mean I'm using a voice modulator? Think about that. I'm literally fucking a baritone voice. What do I need to voice modulate my voice for? It's not like I can make my voice very deep if I want. It's like, what are we doing? What? Seriously? A voice modulator when I'm a baritone? My voice was this deep when I was fucking 12. Like, oh my god. It's just like, that's the kind of stupidity shit that you see. It's just like people saying I have a voice modulator. Anyway, so what happens is I find this out the hard way while I'm doing YouTube, that a lot of these people don't actually give a fuck about me. And when did this moment happen? Well, it happened because the first 2 or 3 years of me doing YouTube, I didn't take a single ad. That's why all of my early content, there's no ads on them. I felt like I was making a stand there. You know what? I'm not going to do this with ads. I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. In the end, guess what I realized? I was an idiot. I left so much money on the table for no reason at all. I suffered in poverty just so I could have brownie points and feel good about myself. Woohoo! I didn't do an ad. I am good. Meanwhile, I could barely feed myself. Right? Because what I realized is that if you're trying to actually make a difference and you don't come from money, like I don't come from, I come from a single parent who was poor from the projects, like nobody's gonna do this for me. I have to do it myself. And to do it myself, I have to do it the way that I can do it. And the way that I can do it as a smaller YouTuber who's more so focused on, you know, fairly deeper content than most maybe, it means that I have to take ads. So that was actually the moment. I was sitting there and I started doing ads and I got a couple of comments about it. And I read these comments and I remember it was like people like what people like to do is pretend that they know you very well and then will give you criticism. And for someone like me with psychological issues, that's the worst thing you can do, because immediately I know you're full of shit. You don't know me. Otherwise, we would have talked about this personally. Otherwise, you could have told me in private, right? Talking to me on YouTube, how do you know me if that's how you're talking to me? You don't know me. Think about that for a second. It's incredibly parasocial to think that from YouTube that we have some kind of connection when I've never met you or talked to you in any kind of way. Right? That's not an insult. I'm just telling you honestly, I don't know who you are. People in this chat, I know who they are. They've taken the time to introduce themselves to me, even if it's just their avatars. If you're just posting a comment or never posted a comment, how the hell do I know who you are? I don't know who you are. So what that means is that you might know my content and think you know me, so you might feel a certain way about the content that I'm making, or you might have an opinion about something, right? So nothing wrong with that, right? Having your own opinion, so on and so forth. The thing is that if you actually want to be taken serious by people who are serious and are intellectual, what you'll find is that oftentimes you have to actually give them serious criticism. So for example, if you say, like I got on one of my videos before, oh, you know, like, you're just talking about the day before because it's easy to dunk on this game or whatever. And it's like, well, it's also like my job to talk about games like this. It just so happens to be one that's recent. And if that's like offensive for you, then it sounds like you're watching too much other YouTubers that are doing the same thing and then thinking that I should give a fuck what other content creators are doing. Like, think about that for a second. Like, why the fuck would I care what an other content creator is doing when I have my own series? I have my own recollection. I want to do my own shit. I don't give a fuck if Matt, whoever the hell is doing his, you know, series, or someone else is doing like I don't watch that shit. Like, I don't. Because I do my own series, it does my own thing. And I don't need to watch that stuff because it doesn't affect really what I'm doing in any serious way most of the time. And I often find that my research is just better. So I enjoy doing it my way more anyway. I've seen your videos. I clearly know what you're. Yes, dude. You can see it. It's like, I want to meet you guys. You know, Card is a moderator. We met in person. He came over to my place. We had dinner. We had lunch. Great time. Great guy. I met Bacon Knight. I met Bacon Knight, one of the prominent members of my community, at a PAX event. We had a great time. We had sushi. We played games. We talked about stupid shit. I like to meet people. I'm a social person. That being said, is it possible for me to meet everybody in the world? No. So we have to do things like we're doing now, so we can kind of bridge that gap. But for people that aren't even willing to come to my stream, come to my Discord, or engage with me personally, I don't see them as being my friend. They're not even an acquaintance to me. You just consume my content. That's it. That's where the line ends. I'm sorry. I know this is not what content creators should say, so I should pretend that it's otherwise so I can get more views and make more money that way. But like, just being honest with you, you just consume my content and I've never spoken to you or read anything you've had to say, or you've never talked to me personally. I don't know who you are. We actually don't have a relationship. But if we have done those things, then we do, even if it's a small one. And maybe we feel connected now because of that, right? I feel much more connected to many of you because of that. But that's where the frustration comes from. Does that make sense? That's why it's like funny sometimes. People think it's about me being antisocial or me trying to just shit on people. It's like, actually, it comes from like, I'm welcoming the sociality. I'm welcoming the debate. You're not even meeting me in the middle. So do I need to be nice to you? Like recently I had a mugshot post. Scrolling up so I can read it, because we had a big chat last night. All right, so this guy posts on my video and says, hey, did you use a voice modulator? And I clowned on the guy. which is my right as a human being, as an American, as a soon-to-be Mexican national, like whatever you want to say as a person on the internet. It's my right when you say shit to me to say that that was stupid. I don't give a fuck if that offends you. Then don't say stupid shit, or don't say shit expecting not to get people to respond to you. Like, how stupid is that? Oh, you're a content creator. How could you have an opinion about my opinion? Because I'm a human being? Yeah, but like, you're supposed to just take my criticism and it's constructive. How is it constructive? I'm using a voice modulator. How is that constructive? It ain't. So that's why I clowned on you, idiot. And then I get a follow-up post from this guy and he says, wow, your attitude stinks. It's just like, are we being serious, bro? Like, would you really treat a human being that way? Think about that. Oh, I'm gonna say some dumb shit, and when he responds to me, oh wow, you have a backbone? You feel differently than me? I mean, like, that's why this shit gets so ridiculous for me. So that's where the incendiary parts of me come out. The troll that was in the echo chambers of Goon Squad and early forum wars and and listening to Daruda Sandstorm and shit. That part of me still exists. I like that part of me. I enjoy that part of me. I like shit posting. I still watch YouTube poops. I still watch troll videos. I still watch random videos. I'm still kind of like that same guy, you know? The difference is now I have a channel with hundreds of videos, or with a series that I'm trying to teach both important lessons and entertain people. I'm still the same guy, you know? And that's the part that it just always cracks me up, is I'll see comments. These ones always crack me up the most. I was just shocked when I saw his responses to people on Twitter, on Reddit, or on da-da-da, and it's like, do you know me? Really, like, think about it. None of my friends that know me would be surprised by that stuff. None of even the people that frequent here would be surprised by that kind of stuff. So that's why it's like, do you know somebody, or do you just consume their content? If you just consume their content, you're not entitled to knowing their personality nor dictating what it should be. Anyway. Person who just learned about voice mods. Nerdslayer using a voice mod. I know. I just like, oh man. You do it better though. Keep it a bean. I appreciate that, man. Nice to meet you. I'm one of those assholes who's been watching you for 6 years and never left a comment. I don't even see it as you being an asshole, because as far as I remember, actually, if you never left a comment, then we would have never had any prior, like, you know, tiffs, if that makes sense. And it's not just because I expect you to agree with me. To be clear, many people in chat don't always agree with me, and that's okay. We don't have to always agree. The problem is when people think that, like, us not agreeing is the same as you constituting what your position is, right? So for example, if I just say, like, I disagree, and somebody says, oh, okay, why do you disagree? And I immediately go, wow, you can't take any criticism. That's what like 80% of my idiotic comments are. Is somebody saying something stupid, or that's not even like quantified in the video or their response, I ask them to clarify, which is just a basic thing to do, and I'm literally accused, and there's threads about this on Reddit, where people say, wow, he can't take any criticism, and it's like you look through the thread, and it's like a guy literally said something that I responded to, like, hey, can you actually say what your issue is? And he doesn't do that, and then I make fun of him, is how a lot of the interactions go. And it's because for someone like me, if you are going to have a conversation with me that you really give a fuck about debating about something, but you can't actually tell me what the fuck it is that you're debating, then you're wasting not just my time, you're wasting your own time. Because when you type up that post where you don't quantify anything, you just wasted your own time. because there's no value in that. It's not like I'm like, I know exactly which issue you are referencing. Like, how the hell am I supposed to know what you're talking about? That's what always cracks me up, is where people aren't even helpful in that process. And then they'll be like, wow, nerd just doesn't take any criticism. It's like, what is the criticism? Like, can you tell me what it is? No, that asking me is the criticism. It's like, oh, okay. Yes, I did grow up playing MMOs because of mental issues. To be honest, that's a large reason why. Both growing up with CPTSD was a large reason for that, but also growing up with not really much concept of gender identity was also something that I kind of related a lot online to, because you could create your own avatar. I appreciate that, Draze. I think that's how you say your name. It'd be expected by a G. I just missed it. What hot sauce have you spilled? Hot sauce? You think you're kidding with me, man, but y'all don't know who you're dealing with, man. Y'all dealing with the king of hot sauce right here. Sponsor me, Cholula. Seriously. Yes, I keep hot sauce at my desk. That's how, and yes, I use it for lubrication as well. If that's what your next question was, yes. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, hot sauce. All the hot sauce. Happy New Year's, everybody. Damn, that's bad to hear about Payday 3. Sounds like you know what you did, but for YouTube and co, yeah, it's very common. And yeah, and look, I hate being one of the echo voices saying, this generation's soft. They kind of are, dude. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's about physical prowess. I don't give a fuck about if you guys care about that shit. My issue is that if you believe in something, you should be able to stand up to whatever it is that you believe in. Like, literally. That's it. There's a bit of truth in every joke. True. Spill the hot sauce, and I literally had a bottle of hot sauce right next to me. And I've probably spilled it before too. That's the funny thing about humor. Sometimes it's just true. Spice King, no, for real, man. Hey, Cajun boy, who also grew up Hispanic. Who got more spices than your boy, man? I'll blacken your shit. I'll Cajun that shit. You know, I'll fry it. You want a dry rub? You want a wet rub? What do you want? I am the Spice King, baby. I just need a drawer. I need a giant drawer. My uncle had this drawer that had like spices from all over the world, and it was pretty cool. It was a big flex, to be honest, but I still think it was cool. Yeah, trust me. If there's one thing that Cajun boys get excited about, spices and being poor. Oh shit, I mean, and eating good food. Wow, seriously, Alex? I need to have a spice jar, honestly. I need one, man. That shit would be stocked out. I actually usually have tahini with me too, but I don't have it with me at the moment. It's in my kitchen, but I'll usually have both of those like back to back because I always put them on my food. And yeah, for people wondering, how does Cajun come into the whole spice thing? Cajun food isn't just spicy. Cajuns put hot sauce on everything. Like growing up, people think that like all my hot sauce obsession comes from my dad's Mexican side. It actually doesn't. Mexicans are obsessed with salsa. Hot sauce is kind of something you add to salsa when it's not that spicy. And most Mexicans will agree with me. That being said, Asian are all about hot sauce. Louisiana hot sauce, Tabasco hot sauce. Dude, don't get me started. And yes, I know Tabasco is a pepper from Mexico, to be clear. But you gotta give the Louisiana people credit, man. They did a damn good job of using these peppers and created an amazing flavor. and I just love vinegary, spicy stuff. So yeah, damn, Cajun hot sauce is just so good, man. I love Tapatio. I love Valentina, Cholula. What else do we got? Of course, like I already mentioned, the Cajun versions. Those are big, even in where I'm from in Houston. Even Hispanic restaurants will still use the Cajun spices, which is funny. Um, there's at least one other big one that I'm forgetting off the top of my head. That's pretty famous as a hot sauce. Oh, there's also Frank's, which is not really my favorite, but that's one. And Sriracha. There you go. My bad. Definitely. If you want a vinegar-based sauce, you want something with a bit of like an extra edge to it, like a little like sweetness, almost like a tanginess. Cajun, baby. Is that what you are, by the way? Are you Brazilian? Because I've heard a lot about the way that Brazilians prepare meat. Same thing with Argentinians. I don't have experience with it. I mean, I've had churrasco, but you know, I'm not like, oh, I know how they do it and I know what's going. No, I don't. I don't. Um, if that's how they do it, that sounds good as fuck to me, honestly. Because Jamaican jerk's my favorite spice. I know I should say the answer is Cajun, but a lot of Cajun people love jerk too. Okay, to be clear, like, and Cajun have their own kind of jerk, but they also like jerk because jerk is a very specific kind of spice. So when you say that you like Cajun food or Jamaican food, you probably like both of them. And maybe a Jamaican person can come correct me on this, or maybe if someone from Louisiana who's more Cajun than me can correct me. But I think that that's pretty true. Yeah, and that's partly why I do it, Eleanor, is I'm a directly challenging person. So yeah, oftentimes when I challenge people, I know it's going to ruffle their feathers, but I don't really care because at the end of the day, if everyone treats discourse like as soon as somebody says something you don't like, you just stop talking, then we'll never talk about anything that's important. And we'll never get anywhere. And the important part of that for me is that, and this is actually, look, we're going to talk about current political situations for a second. Right now, political situations in many different, I'm not even going to be specific to which ones, but they're so like volatile that if you even try to talk about them, people will try to like pin you to a wall and say you're this, you're that, and they create a fight instead of an actual point of discourse. And the problem there is that growing up in forums, that wasn't the case. And I feel like that ability to be rational and actually hear people out is getting worse. And I think it's because one of the topics that I wanted to talk about is actually performative twittering. So I'm going to slice that off my list. I actually have a list here, and I've barely been following it. But this is a special New Year stream, so who cares? I don't have gym today, so it's all good. So performative twittering is an example of this. What is performative twittering? Okay, so I am a person who belongs to quite a few marginalized groups. I'm Jewish, I'm trans, I'm also just like a weird nerd. I'm a fighter, right? So I don't even kind of belong on the internet in some cases. Needless to say, I have a bit of experience from belonging to some different marginalized groups. And the internet has always been a place that groups like this could thrive since the beginning of time. Meaning since the beginning of the internet, since I got on the internet when I was 6 years old. I still remember basically being able to create any identity that I wanted back then. So the concept of having identity crisis didn't exist. At least not for me, right? Because I could just make whoever I wanted. And many other people found solace and enjoyment in playing online games for the same reason. Maybe they didn't want to be seen as a big guy. Maybe they wanted to be seen as a small guy. Maybe they wanted to be seen as a girl. Maybe they wanted to be seen as a alien or something else, right? So yeah, like representation, online gaming, virtual worlds have been a place for people like this, right? People that are weird, people that are different, to find the place that they can be themselves. And a part of that process came with the whole internet shitting on people, like trolling thing. Excuse me. What I mean is that gatekeeping was very common back in the day. It still exists, but it's less common these days. Or people would gatekeep people when they would try to enter the scene. Oh, you're not a real gamer. You're not a real this. That would happen a lot back then. I don't think it happens nearly as much anymore. And I think it's because not only is gaming more popular, this whole Twitter performative stuff is becoming more popular. And what I'm trying to say is that online spaces for marginalized people have existed for such a long time that what's starting to happen now is social media spaces are becoming very, very powerful and have for the past 10 years. To the point to where now they're being places that those marginalized people might go to. Now, what I often find is that the most people that are the loudest and talk the most about these issues have nothing to do with them. And that might sound strange. Why does someone need to be a part of something to actually care, right? Like, I don't need to be a part of this horrible problem to not support it, right? Well, it's true, but at the same time, if you don't actually understand what the issue is, and you're not actually doing anything, then essentially you're doing what I call performing. It's performance. You're showing everybody, this is how I feel and this is what I think, but you're not actually doing anything. And I think this is a problem with social media even more so nowadays. Is like, for example, you guys will hear me talk about helping marginalized people and giving people access to martial arts and gaming and stuff like that. That's consistent with my moral views. So for example, when I create my gym in the future, and I've told my professor this already, my goal is to create a program for people that can train for free. These are going to be for kids that must show their report cards. So you must be doing good in school, you must be taking it seriously, but you can train for free. And the reason why this is important for me is I grew up not being able to afford gyms. Different trainers that I would go to allowed my dad and my, me and my brother for us to train because we were just good. So some people might not have the ability to be good or good yet. So they need help. So for me, for example, something that I believe in and that I personally affect is helping people with martial arts, right? That's how I feel. Now, the other thing that I personally stand behind is I do consulting work with my YouTube channel, right? Now that's paid work, but it's also still work that I'm doing to help and better the industry. I'm just getting paid to do it, right? So for me, these are two things that matter a lot for me, right? It's why I talk about games a lot. It's why I talk to developers a lot. It's why I get a lot of stories from developers that I report to you guys about. I need to make a living to live, but my dog in the game is I want online gaming to succeed and be better and be more ambitious than it ever is, right? So it's kind of like very generalistic, but that's it, right? So whatever I can do to make sure that happens, that's what I'm trying to do and trying to accomplish. Now, what if I never made content? What if I never made any videos? What if I never put out a single video? I just want to ask you guys a question. Do you think the MMO space and online virtual space would be using MO as a tag as much as they're using it these days? Do you think that we would even know why some of these classic games even died? Because nobody was talking about them before. Like, no. So that was the value that I added to the equation, because I brought that into the forefront. So I wasn't just talking about stuff. I actually got the research, and created art, right? The issue that I have with this new generation of internet performance, and it's not just Twitter, I'm picking on Twitter, but Reddit is horrible at this too, is that people will get this angry mob mentality, and I've mentioned this analogy before. But the problem with the angry mob is that they don't even know why they're angry. So people are just angry at shit. I just hate this, and I just hate that, and I just hate this, and it's just like, that's helpful somewhat. It's also so easy to corrupt that. It's so easy to turn you and use you whenever you're just angry but you don't know why, right? So it's a big problem that's happening in the internet. That's why discourse is getting worse. It's because people are getting angrier and talking about politics more, and yet wanting to talk about it less, if that makes sense. Actually talk about it with somebody else, where it's not just agreeing with them, right? So it creates this like weird situation where it's like the world has gotten more connected in terms of the internet, and yet people have become more distant from each other because they've become almost more, with the popularity of social media, stuck in their own little like sect of or group of people. To talk about the kind of not so nice parts of this conversation, because I did want to cover this stream, the problem with this stuff is that a lot of those people that are doing this tweeting and performing, they think they're doing a lot of good. And I'm just going to be honest with you, you're not. I've seen like 5 major trans movements happen in social media. Not a single one of them had any trickle effect down to me in any way that helped me in any way or made my life better. Why would they? I already exist in spaces that are okay with me being trans. So why would I need the internet support? Why would I need randoms on the internet to support me? I already have that. That already existed. I already have other people that believe in this shit online. Okay, so then it's like, well, it's because they're saying this stuff for your cause. What the fuck is my cause? I'm a trans dude, but you don't actually know what my identity is. I'm non-binary, but I actually don't feel that gender applies to me. So meaning that I don't give a fuck about the gender wars. So you can't lump me in with everyone else, because most other trans people do care about their trans identity and their gender, right? This is the kind of shit that I'm saying is just because people get such, like, in these weird mentalities, I'll have, like, trans supporters talking to me, an actual trans person, about, like, hey, you know, this is what you gotta do. And it's like, you need to go outside and go talk about trans people there. That's gonna help me. That'll help trans people. Go to your local school. Go to your soup kitchen. Help the poor people there. I'm saying that I promise whatever issue that you're very charged about, that you've posted 20 tweets about, there's something you can do in person to help. I promise you. And that'll feel way more rewarding than just getting angry at randoms online because they disagree with your, like, barely fleshed out position. I'm just being blunt about it because I've just seen a lot of this lately. Like, on a lot of subjects. Like the Israel-Palestine situation, the Russia-Ukraine situation, general politics in America. Like, yeah, it's like, I'm seeing this in so many different places that it's just, it's like the death of being able to conversate and actually figure out what your differences are, and then arrive maybe at a different position or change your perspective. A lot of that shit ain't happening, man. And the people online, like, for example, the people that get really angry at people online about trans identity, you guys think that you're helping? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, bro. You're not helping me. I've had my identity perfectly fine on the internet now for 20 years. I don't need you to go fucking, you know, like, demonstrate in the online streets. Like, this is literally how I view this kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to dismiss people that do this kind of stuff here, even just a little bit. I'm just trying to tell you, if that's all that you're doing, I'm just saying, like, the internet's the only place that people that are marginalized already exist on. So you're just echo chambering for brownie points. And like a good example of this is recently there was this tweet from a ex-Blizzard employee. And this is actually why I brought up the subject, ironically, of performative tweeting. Is this guy had one of the biggest performative tweet examples I think I've seen in like a minute. Okay, check it out. Breaking my silence to share a fun fact, Andy Belfort says. He, him. When we planned Overwatch 2's Steam launch, my team warned months in advance that we were going to be review bombed. We begged for more information, more details, and more resources to help us with the anticipated influx, and all were just flatly denied. Bobby Kotick! Why, Bobby? Why did you do this to us, Bobby? Literally, this is what I feel, bro, when I'm reading this shit. Ugh. Andy, you didn't think people like me were gonna talk about you. But I'm here to talk about you. Moderation of Steam was put on the community team, not a function of the community at Blizz, despite my refusal to want to expose members of my team to the level of toxic content imposed. When asked whose decision it was to launch on Steam with no additional help, Bobby. This is only one example of the culture that Kotick bred at AB. Shit flowed downstream, so it was always the executive's fault. Usually landing on the lowest paid, like me, and most overworked, like me. Management was too busy reacting to wildly facilitating direction and decisions that made no sense. At the end of everything, player experience and worker meant nothing to C-suite and executive leadership. It was all about the quarter earnings call. And then read the fucking post to this shit, bro. Thank you for dealing with the best as you could. Oh, so surprising. Oh, this must have weighed heavily on your heart. I'm so glad that everything's better for you guys now. It's all coming together. It all makes sense. I feel sorry for this to happen. You and your team deserved better than this. I mean, like, bro. I got some questions, Bobby. Or Andy, my bad. Bobby's not here. Andy is. Here's my question to you, Andy. Why are you so focused on the perceptions? How come you don't mention anything about needing more time to actually flesh out the game? Do you want to know why? Because he's performing. This is fucking nonsense. This is utterly useless shit that people just gobble up. 26,000 fucking posts or likes on this shit. Like, what the fuck? We don't even know what this guy did previously. And he throws his hat into the fray after Bobby the King is dead. So everyone loves to say something after the king is dead. And then what he has to say is fucking useless. Oh my god, if we had more resources, for what? You were gonna get review bombed because the game sucked and you promised something that you didn't deliver on. That's what I don't like about this shit, is it's like downplaying the fact that you guys basically committed fraud. That was Bobby's fault? It was Bobby's fault you guys committed fraud. It was Bobby's fault that you guys came out with one fucking story mission or two, I think, after like the spring. After years? After years? No, that's not how development works. So the way development works, and I would figure you would know this, Andy, since you are a developer, this supposedly worked at the company. When you develop content, sometimes it takes 8 months to develop it, right? Where was all that time? What were you guys developing? Apparently, you're more focused on the fact that people held you accountable for putting out a shit game and doing a shit job. That hurts your feelings more. And that's the kind of shit that I'm talking about with this performative nonsense. This is performative nonsense in its essence. He did not say anything of note. He did not offer any solution. It's the constant, oh, well, if they had just resources. It's like, what the fuck does that even mean in this case? more people to respond to the comments? Like, literally think about what would that even mean logically. It doesn't make any fucking sense. And I'm so tired of people, like, because people are developers, people feel like you have to be nice to them. No, I don't actually have to be nice to this Andy guy. He's an idiot. He came out and he only had something to say so he could score some fucking points. Get bent, bro. Make a better game or take accountability for it. That's not the look, man. What's weird now is that because someone watches or plays content with certain groups of people, they think you instantly support them. Oh, could you give me an example? No, that's not true. Wait, what are you talking about? What's not true? What part's not true? All I care about is skinning Butsuki. What the fuck is that? The feeling is mutual. I appreciate it, man. Love your work, bro. Been seeing your videos for years. You rock. I appreciate that, Matthias. Much love to everybody. I've been a silent supporter of the community for years and just wanted to say that I really appreciate you. Thank you for being who you are. It's rare to hear such sobering truths these days. I appreciate that, AK, and obviously I don't know exactly what you're referencing, but I just appreciate it, just period. Posting a flag on my profile, I'm doing my part. Yeah, and that's the problem I have, is that this has become like a recent thing. And by the way, without outing anybody else, there's other trans people in the chat. Do you hear them saying anything about this? Because that kind of stuff does not affect them in any way. I've asked trans people this. How does it affect you when somebody else creates the representation online? Their answer is always, they kind of look at me and they kind of smile and they think, it doesn't. I already have places that I'm represented. Second Life, VR chat, like, these places exist. And the norm is not what you think. The fighting game community, oh, it's so fucking alpha and manly, isn't it? You know how many gay and trans people and girls are in the FGC these days? A lot. You know how many furries there are in FGC? Whew. Guess what the FGC does to people who don't accept that kind of stuff? I was told this by somebody who is trans, by the way, that if you were to go to an event and be anti-trans, you would actually get beat up by people supporting trans people more likely than it would be the opposite. Because most people there already are aware of it, or there's people in the community that are exposed to it. So that's where representation matters. In cases like that, in public places, and more situations like that. Online, you have the freedom to go to any place you want to, which means that if you don't feel like Twitter is representing you, you're not at the right place on Twitter. That's the whole point. There's a go there, go there, go there. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not a physical place that you're being barred access from. Like, this idea that I read about representation, it's so strange to me. It's like, representation, like how? Like, how does somebody else saying that they support me on their profile mean anything to me when I don't exist on the Twitter space all the time? When I don't need my Twitter representation to be supported by other people? When my gender identity is not attacked on Twitter? See what I'm saying? It's kind of, it's just, I end up feeling like, all right, you know, like, I don't look at them like they're doing something bad, but I just kind of look at them like, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's all I'm asking. Can't believe we're actually discussing this. Small house geckos is the Filipino word for them? What? I know, it's an interesting thing to discuss. I think we've probably talked about it a lot more than most, personally. Not just because you and I have played a lot of games together, but I've been able to explain my position, I think, a bit more in personal engagements. For example, like someone like Card is more familiar with it. Yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff does happen too. And to be clear, like, I appreciate the concept of an ally. To be clear, as somebody who's a part of a few marginalized groups, I like the idea. However, I don't like this version of it. This doesn't really feel like an ally. It feels weirdly performative. It's like, it feels like it's like, hey, I'm the person in your post. Oh no! It's about people that really need the help. And it's about people that really need. It's like, hey, I'm the person that you're talking. Yeah, but it's about people that really needed the representation. You're just like, you start putting your hand down. You're like, okay, it's not about me, the person that they're actually talking about. It's related to neurotypicals. Everything they do is performative. I think that that's an oversimplification of neurotypicals, actually. Because the thing about neurotypicals is that they, like me, also learn how to be themselves by being a part of the real society who teaches them the harsh reality that they can't be themselves in the same way that they wish they could. So that's why someone like me can say very confidently, I know the internet is a place you can be safe. Because I've been here for 20 years. In person, you want to know how many times I've been in fights? You want to know how many times I've been jumped or like had shit thrown at me or like had situations like that happen? Honestly, a lot. More than probably most people. So that's why it's kind of always like, hey man, I need an ally in real life. I don't really need an ally online. Sorry. I've told this to multiple people who do this online. I don't need you to be my ally online. I'm sorry, buddy. I appreciate like you care about my cause or someone else's cause. I appreciate that, but I'm telling you, it doesn't actually trickle to me. It doesn't actually help me anyway. And I don't think it helps most people like me. And I've talked to a lot of people about this recently because I've found that it's like we almost feel like people that are engaged in this actually feel like other people talk about it more than we do in ways that we don't really relate to. It's interesting, right? You know, it's kind of like how I'll have people yell about me sometimes in support, but they'll be like, oh, he's trans, like you gotta support. It's like, yeah, but do you know what, like how I am trans? Because if you do, then you know that like whether you call me a girl or a guy or whatever you want to call me, I don't actually care. It doesn't mean anything to me. That's why the obsession about gender has never mattered personally to me. Am I well aware that it matters to a lot of people? Yes. Do I think that talking about you supporting other people's desires to do that online could be helpful optically? Perhaps, maybe. Like if you first join a community and you see that, maybe that could be helpful to you. But the thing is that most of the people that are already a part of these communities are pretty aware of this stuff already, meaning that they already have a community. I've never met a non-furry that doesn't know about Second Life or VR chat. Like I'm just being on, like, again, maybe because I'm actually connected to people who are furries. I actually know furries. I actually know multiple types of trans people, not just myself. I mean, I can get there's two scared. So I want to dive into what Eleanor's saying because I actually think that there could be some truth there. Maybe a like person who wants to support a trans person is too afraid to actually talk to a trans person to actually see like their perspective or something. Like, do I think that that's possible? Yes, actually. That's kind of, I mean, kind of proving my point is I kind of think that that's part of the problem is when you're an ally, yet you don't actually know what they feel or think. Are you really an ally or are you just kind of like being an angry pitchfork wielder? Which I'm sure many people support and enjoy, right? I trust me. Again, I have lots of trans friends. They love an angry pitchfork. But like, I'm just telling you, like, for me, what would be helpful telling trans people online is like, defend yourself. Don't actually try to be yourself in every engagement you are in. That would actually be helpful in real life to trans people. But that's not what we're talking about online, is it? No. And that's the problem that I have as somebody who's actually seen trans violence, right? Who grew up going to Montrose, right? Like one of the most famous gay neighborhoods and LGBTQ neighborhoods in the entire country. Like I know what that stuff looks like when you don't have a place to go, you know? And I think that that's just, if I could leave you guys with that, it's just, hey, you know, be an ally, but also find yourself trying to do something in person too. Every now and then, something. Care about people that are hungry out there. There's hungry people in your neighborhood, bro. I promise you. You care about, like, you know, particular religious things? Go pray at the temple that's down the street. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. By the way, I'm going to take another break. When I come back, I'm going to answer some of the basic MMO questions that I've been not answering. I should have done that first, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to do shorts about them anyway. So anyway. All right, I'm back. So something else too. You didn't know that they hadn't been covered yet? Yeah. Now we spend a lot of time talking about just honestly humans, just being social, shit like that. I think a lot of these movements, people do have the right idea. Like they're good people. To be clear, if it sounds like I'm just being an asshole, it's like I'm not. I'm just being more realistic about it. Which is that you also start to think about, okay, but then, like, what does it actually look like? What does actual support look like? How can you actually make a difference? And as a trans person who's been online for 20 years, I'm telling you, like, with a smile on my face, like, what the fuck can you do online to help me? Like, genuinely, what can you do? Like Axia said, like, protect me from doxing, I guess, like hack someone or something. Like what are you gonna do to like help my identity? Like defend people who say that it's, I don't know, I don't understand that stuff, I'll be honest. But maybe I'm just that kind of person. Anyway. Let's talk about common questions about MMOs. So I thought that this would be a very helpful way to answer some very common questions that I get all the time. Some of these might be very obvious to people, but I wanted to go through these and maybe even cut this video up at some point. Starting off with the first question, what is an MMO? An MMO stands for Massive Multiplayer Online. If it's MMORPG, stands for Massive Multiplayer Online RPG. MMO isn't always the only, or is commonly a prefacer, but not always the ending acronym. So sometimes you'll get RPG, sometimes you'll get OG, sometimes you'll get FPS, RTS. And basically what that means is that whatever genre that it's referring to, like RPG, it's saying that this genre is massively multiplayer. Now, the problem that people often have, and the question that follows up immediately after, is what is massive? And what does massive multiplayer mean? So some people like to say, well, massively multiplayer means that it's just multiplayer massively. Other people say, no, massive means it's the amount of players. The former literally doesn't add anything to the discussion. It's just what people like to say because they like to be like, see, no number matters. I'm here to tell you that there actually was a number. There was a number. People did consider massive to be a number in 1999. Guess what that number was? It wasn't that big. It was only a couple of 100, right? It was about 500 to 1,000 players. According to Asheron's Call, that's what they were aiming for. They were able to beat that as an MMO that launched in 1999 that was retroactively called an MMO, by the way, because they were first called a graphical MUD, because that's what they were. Ooh, into my next question. What's a MUD? A MUD is a multi-user dungeon. The creators of the virtual world space first created games that were called multi-user dungeons or MUDs. They were largely text-based, but later on started to include graphics as well, hence the name Graphical MUD. So Graphical MUD was the name going in the late 90s, early 2000s, but it just wasn't very sexy. So Richard Garriott, the creator of Ultima Online, which launched in the same year of Asheron's Call, said, we're going to call it Massively Multiplayer Online RPG, MMORPG. So that's what they named it. So then the industry became MMORPG. Then people often wonder, okay, but then you talked about virtual worlds and them being created. What's a virtual world? Well, a virtual world can be a game, right? Could also technically be some kind of, story about a virtual world, right? A book, a movie. The point is a virtual world is a world like ours, however, in a virtual space. Right? So it's like in another world within a digital space. So it doesn't just mean it's within our digital space. It could mean within another space's digital world. So virtual worlds are worlds that are virtual. But what does that actually mean? Well, they're artificial. Artificial is a bit more helpful of a term. Artificial means that a player has constructed a virtual world. So developers constructed virtual worlds. And that's how they made these games. So you might be saying, okay, but then what about like all these different tags? Well, there's only one other relevant tag that you should probably know in terms of acronyms, and that's going to be multiplayer online RPG, or MMORPG. So then the question is what is an MMORPG or an ORPG? Well, ORPGs or MMORPGs are the game that came before the massive variant. They, however, did not have a very long time in the sun. That's because people were trying to go bigger. And pretty much every mass, that's a pun, every famous MMORPG was an MMORPG because it couldn't be massive. Most famously, the first of the genre, Phantasy Star Online. Phantasy Star Online came out the gate saying, we're an ORPG, or not massive. And most Westerners didn't listen. I'm just kidding, but that changed everything. Suddenly now everything mimics Phantasy Star. Suddenly now everything mimics being a multiplayer online RPG. So then to backtrack slightly, what's the difference between an MMO and an MMORPG, and how are they both virtual worlds? Well, because a virtual world is just another world that's created virtually. No matter how massive that world is, it's still a world. So it can be a big, massive, fairly realistic world. Realistic in the sense that it works. Or it could be more of a game that still has a bit of what you would call a world, right? So virtual worlds can be massive or not. But they're just basically another world that online players can live and enjoy. So then you might be asking, okay, well then what's the point of these games? Why do you play these games? That's an actually really hard question. In fact, I might even smoke before I answer that question. Why do people play MMOs? To have fun. That's the core reason. But what's fun about them? Well, oftentimes it's not the graphics. Because the graphics aren't better than any other game. Oftentimes it's not the gameplay. Because the gameplay's not better than Elden Ring. So what is it? It's because people can chat, right? Kind of. Other chat rooms exist, though. Those aren't exactly virtual worlds, right? So why do people love virtual worlds? Because it's another world. Not like our world. It has orcs in it. It has goblins in it. It has dragons. It has flying cows. It has flying ships. It has giant lasers. It has massive battles over some rare artifact. Shit that you probably wouldn't want to be a part of in real life, right? Because you probably get killed. You can do that. You ever wanted to see what it felt like to be a farmer? Go play Galaxies. You ever wanted to see what it felt like to be a pilot? Go play Galaxies. You ever wanted to make friends? Go play any virtual world. Why people play these games is because they connect people. And when people are connected, they have experiences. And experiences matter more and last longer than goods. So, what MMOs are trying to create, and this is a really true, like, you can tell anybody this, they're always going to think that you're smart as shit, so hear me out. What MMOs are truly trying to create, what a virtual world is truly trying to create over anything else, emergency. Not emergency. Emergency. Emergent gameplay. Emergent gameplay. That's what MMOs are trying to create. Emergent gameplay is organic gameplay. It's gameplay that happens as if it was just a world taking place, you know, just cogs turning in a world. The next question is, how do people... Oh, another reason I forgot to mention is socialization, of course. How do people play MMOs? By themselves. Yeah, that's actually little known, is that early MMOs that were very socially focused, people often think that, well, you couldn't possibly play those alone. You could, and I did. I played a lot of them alone. Here's the truth. When you're playing a massive online world that's a virtual world, are you ever playing it alone? No. That's the whole thing. However, over time, as the worlds got smaller, it's much easier to do that, right? You can just imagine that. As the world shrinks, it's easier to do that. You don't need as many people and as many interactions to create the experiences that you need. So that might be sounding like, well then, does that mean that MMOs are always better than MMORPGs? Which one's better? Either. And that might sound like a cop-out, but really hear me out. It's not. It's not. Honestly. It's not a cop-out because these are two different styles of the same game. And to quickly explain that, MMORPG games, like this, they're zoomed in, and they're focused on very specific parts. Whereas MMOs are like this. They're trying to look at a giant world and give you a lot of experiences within that world to experience. If your game is reliant on the next expansion coming out with new story content to make it, you know, worthwhile playing, it's probably not very massive, right? Because the actors usually are the characters and that create content in massive games. By the way, Yoshi P has said this on record too. More massive MMOs and more massive online RPGs, that's how they do it. The non-massive ones, like Final Fantasy XIV, rely less on that and rely more on the developer guiding you. So there's strengths to both. Massive world can give you so much possibilities of things to do and kind of give you your own ability to do them. But sometimes they also just have no story, have little tutorial, do a really poor job at getting you connected to the world, and aren't that friendly to new players. And then with the less massive variant, they do a fantastic job at feeding you a story. They give you a story, they give you a great narrative. You really understand, right, what's going on in the world and your purpose. The problem often is that without the story, and have nothing else to do. You're kind of just waiting for the next raid or dungeon to come out because the PvP in the game is not really serious, or because the trading in the game is not really serious, or because the economy is only really used for gearing up past a point. This kind of stuff. or because you're not really made to socialize in these games. So you can kind of play them almost exclusively by yourself. So yeah, things like that. And then of course people can play MMOs in giant groups, huge groups. I've been in a community, in a multi-gaming community that was like 300 people. Whenever we would join a new game, instantly we were like the biggest guild on the server. So yeah, some people play games like that too. My last two questions. What can you do in a typical MMO? Sounds like a cop-out. Kind of anything. It's kind of the crazy part. It's kind of the alluring, addictive, seductive part of it. You can do anything. But what are some examples? You can fly around on a mount. You can have spaceship combat. You can do bounty hunting. Create a criminal enterprise. Attack a city. Raise a city. Raise kids. Marry somebody. Be a farmer. Go look for the rarest materials in the world. Become the most powerful person in a particular region. These are real things you could do. That's what makes this genre so exciting for people. It's the sheer possibility of things to do. What kinds of MMOs are there? This is not the same as me saying MMORPGs and MMOs. When I said kinds, I wanted to end on this. Currently speaking, most MMORPGs and MMOs are the same kind of game. What kind of game are they? They're based on a game called Deku Mud. Guess what games are based on Deku Mud? EverQuest? RuneScape? WoW. So, Deku Mud was a very famous mud that was all about the hero's journey, getting the next item, and defeating the next boss. Does it sound like I just described WoW? Or Final Fantasy XIV? Or any of these other kind of games? It's because I did. That's what they're built on. They're that kind of MMO. But other kind of MMOs actually exist. For example, social avatar MMOs exist. Second Life doesn't have combat, really. You know what I mean? Like, The Sims Online didn't have combat. Ava Hotel didn't have combat. Folk Music didn't have combat. True Life didn't have combat. Trinixie didn't have combat. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't need to have combat. Nobody ever said that you needed to. So that's what kinds of MMOs mean. Is maybe a social MMO doesn't give a fuck about combat at all. Maybe a sandbox MMO is more about you building things in the game that are unique. So that's what kinds of MMOs would mean. All right, we finished our little thing. That was fun. I should have done that to start. Want to buy some death sticks? Go play Galaxies. True. People love virtual worlds for escapism, for sure. Persistency, progression, customization. Absolutely. All great answers. Ammo. Yeah, no, you see it a lot with businesses, but businesses make more sense for me, AK, because they're trying to make a buck. Ooh, AK, that's a good fucking point. And guess who knows that? Me as a Jew. I learned the difference of those two things from the liberal media recently the hard way. I learned that they didn't mind that I was Jewish, but now it's kind of like, uh-oh. He bad guy. Just scrolling up to see if I miss anything. I guess raise support for laws and stuff. Yeah, good point, Alex. And actual causes that are helpful, like, you know, food drives and so on and so forth. Like, marketing for stuff like that's always going to be helpful. Good. I mean, I'm glad you guys are coming up with some examples. I'm not advocating for grand standards, but sometimes when you're in an unfamiliar space, like a new gamer community, it can be nice to just find random support. I think so too. And I think that was actually kind of one of the examples I mentioned as well, Dane. It's like if you just happen to see somebody say something like that, that would still be nice to see. For example, when I went to my current gym and I heard my professor talk to me personally about her situation, it made me immediately feel like, oh, okay, whew, I'm okay. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, like it can help. But again, that was a physical space. I know it's different, more real, but I can still understand. Like if I join a game and someone's like, "Yo, bro, what's up?" Hey, I appreciate that, you know, or whatever. I didn't know you stream. Oh, well, welcome, Emma. What a funny thing for you to come see. They need to see multiple people agreeing. It's not clout, it's their career, it's their brand. Yeah, yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I said, Eleanor. I think that's a good point. Was it WoW that made the term popular? Yeah, for sure. The reason is like you can actually read media at the time, which I did, just so I wouldn't go around spelling shit like an idiot. Like I read the books of the time, and they were calling them all types of game. TSO, for example, in my video called it an MMOG because it wasn't an RPG, really, right? Like not really, like so they called it an a MOG. Guild Wars 1, Corporate G. Um, Asheron's Call, multiplayer online game. Fantasy Star, online RPG. AOL's Neverwinter, online RPG, because Massive didn't exist yet. So yeah. Some good dialogue for sure. Some games some games really are like here's the world, off you are, enjoy. What, you want some kind of beginner guides? That's for amateurs, yeah. Or that's what wikis are for. Amateurs. Gotcha. Progression is a stronger chemical hook, that's why it gets big. It gives you something to play, a goal. It's like a treadmill. Why do Christians hate Jews? Am I stupid? I mean, I don't even know if I can answer that because of my history. Hmm. I'll say this. Um, Christians are often seen as being nicer to Jews historically, and that's largely maybe been the case, right? But obviously, if you're a Sephardic Jew like me, that wasn't the case. And the problem is often that Christians are tolerant of Jews, but they don't like them, nor actually care about them. And this was something that actually has happened a lot with like someone like Ben Shapiro, who's very conservative in America, like politics, American politics. But even people in his own like party don't like him because he's Jewish. Like just as an example, where it's like he's not even they don't even dislike him because of his politics or his personal opinions, just because of the religion stuff. So, and for people that are not aware, it's because basically how the Bible reads is it says that after rapture happens, like when you know world's gonna end and like everyone's gonna go to heaven or not, it says that the Jews are supposed to be present. It never says that they're supposed to be like doing good. So that's how I've had it described by a very like educated Bible person that I am friends with. And that's what she told me. She said that it's basically like technically the deal for Christians is like the Jews need to be there at rapture, but it doesn't actually say that you have to be nice to them, um, nor like have to necessarily like be friendly with them, right? They're just supposed to be there because they're also the children. So, um, that's literally what like the Christian Bible talks about. But anyway, yeah, yeah. No, it's well, I don't expect you to know that. Honestly, I don't expect most even Christians to know about that because most didn't actually read the Bible. But I did Bible study as a kid, and even though I was later on Jewish, long story short, but anyway, at the time when I was doing Bible study as a Baptist, yeah, I was learning a lot of that stuff. Like, wait a minute, rapture, interesting. It's like end of the world shit, and yeah, it gets complicated. To be clear, the Sephardic Jews largely have a better history with the Islamic religion than the Christian religion, which is why I think that people thinking that every Jew would have the same opinion on the current conflict right now is a bit kind of silly, because it's like, I mean, be clear, like Islamic religion was actually much nicer to my people that were Sephardic historically, like than the Christians were. Even my Ashkenazi, like Russian, Ukrainian ancestors were treated poorly by Protestant, like Christians. So, needless to say, like a lot of the history in my family tree comes from the Christian world of negativity being Jewish. But, anyway, not everyone has the same kind of story. I may not agree with everything or with you on everything, but I like some of your content. I wish you good luck to keep up the great work and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too, by the way. And I'm glad that you don't agree with me on everything, because without sounding edgy, I just don't really feel like that's like a real like thing, because it's just like, if you agree with somebody on everything, I really feel like you're just like, you don't have any positions that are your own, because there has to be something that we would disagree on, even if we were like very much aligned. Like, for example, I'm sure I like spicy food more than you do. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you like butter more than I do. I doubt it, but it's believable. You know what I'm saying? Like, but yeah. Anyway, on that note, I actually think I'm gonna pretty much end stream. Cause yeah, it's the internet's been really weird lately. That's why I had that long discussion about being performative. So for people out there, if you really care about a subject, just find somebody that actually gives a fuck about it and just talk to them about it. I think you'll learn more that way than you'll learn doing any of the Twitter posting kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? And I think a good example of that is go watch Destiny's content. For example, he brought on people from both sides of both conflicts. And you got to actually like hear their perspectives, even if you don't agree or think it's stupid. That's so helpful, because you have to actually be able to like listen sometimes, even if you hate somebody. Trust me, that's a skill that I need. Yeah, definitely a wide range of topics. I actually came in today because it's the new year with an idea of like, I'm not just going to talk about gaming stuff today. It just didn't feel like that kind of day. How do you feel about the evolution of MMORPGs going from very social focused games to arcade style? I think that was because MUDs died, that was the consequence. We didn't get the rest of the kind of games that MUDs had. And to be clear, MUDs had like 6 other different types of game. It's just that Deku MUD just was very popular. And, that became like the style that is one of the only ones that kind of carry it over. And the reason why I think that that's problematic is that there was so many other interesting styles of game. And right now we're basically playing, even if you like whatever the current iterations of games are, very limited versions of whatever we could be playing, because we're only playing like one style of MMO basically. And on top of that, even amongst that style, most of them are copying off the same stuff. So, yeah. My favorite conversations are with my 2 friends where we disagree with each other. I mean, like, it's funny because, like, describing... So, 2 of my best friends are very smart and very capable, but they're not interested in this kind of stuff. That being said, like when I talk to them on other subjects, these guys, they're so sharp, man. They don't miss anything. That being said, always disagreeing with each other. Like you should actually hear how I talk to my friends. I've made this joke with people before that like if you heard me and my friend, either one of my best friends, like talk to each other, you would think we were arguing a lot of the time. It's just how we are. It's not just busting each other's balls either. It's just we are gonna like, hey, tell me more about this shit. Like, you know, that sounds stupid. Like, we're confrontational because we know we can just shrug it off. You know what I'm saying? Even if we're being incendiary and joking with each other, because we have rapport, we know each other. But I'd mention that because it's just always funny whenever I hear people talk about like conversations and arguments. I always think of them thinking about it like two people talking and they're just like la 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 la, and it's like that's not how it is for me. Like when I'm with my friends, it's like we're happy with it. It's like it's always both. Like it's never like just one thing and then it's like suddenly someone says I disagree and it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like I've heard in some rooms when that happens. That doesn't happen with my friends. We're just like, I disagree. And we're like, oh, really? Because then we're ready to go to war over something like. And like one thing about my two best friends, and I think I'm the same way, is like we have certain subjects that if we seem like we're willing to go to war on those subjects, just back off. It's a trap. You know, like my best friend, you know, I'll just use their initials, D. You say anything about the military, anything gun related, anything knowledge about any firearm or any weapon, bro, you better know your shit. Because he knows his shit. You say anything about anything medical, anything that's just like common kind of sense, anything that's like history related, my other friend, you know, Kay, like he's all over you. And they're like that with everyone. So it's something that I love about them, is why I mention it. Is that's why we're such good friends, you know? Online, I really don't have interest to argue, debate about basically anything unless I'm having fun in the moment. Yeah, so Alex, as funny as it sounds, I actually think I largely agree, especially these days. You come back like 3 years ago, if you asked me this, I probably would have said no, for real. Like, but my love of debate kind of died on the internet when forums died, to be honest. It's never really been the same. So like, I'll get it every now and then, but I never really feel like it was worth it in many cases. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that oftentimes my goal is not really to debate. It's more so to be like, you know what? I'm going to talk to this person, and if we can come to an understanding, even if we disagree, I'm just going to focus on that. That's something that I've been doing lately where like on my TSO video, I disagree with a couple of the posters there. But in the end, I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the parts that we do agree on. Because largely, I don't really think the parts we disagree about matter that much. You know? But that's just my personal opinion. And I also think that it's also a matter of like, if you're always afraid to say anything that goes against the grain, like Soulsphere probably is, which is why his genius contribution to the chat is, y'all sound like a real pain to be around. Well, y'all means I know you're from the South, so it means I know you're extra stupid, because the education system sucks in the South. So I'll follow that up with saying something else I probably know about you is like, you clearly don't have any interest in doing any of the stuff that I'm talking about, so I don't even know why you felt like saying anything other for me to just prove my point that you wouldn't do those things. So thanks for allowing me to use you as an example, is the point that I'm making. Do I sound like a pain to be around now, or do I sound worse? I hope I sound worse now, right? That was my goal. But this is an example where it's like, this is how sensitive people get, where suddenly a guy is sensitive because people feel about wanting to have conversations properly. It's like, what even is the thing to complain about here? You shouldn't have typed y'all because you didn't know that I knew you were from, right? That's how debate is in a sense of like formally Alex Fox. But I've actually like pretty much every one of my best friends kicked my ass. I'll just admit it. And I'll give you great examples. So when I first encountered my friend D, he really made me realize that like I did not understand guns and how the military worked. And I would say shit around him and he would just be like, that's not true. And being around my friend, Kay, I mean, honestly, he's just my litmus test for everything in life. He just checks me on everything. But he's checked me on some very important things in my life. Like, I can even say that, like, without exaggerating, that he saved my life. So, and to be clear, he saved my life by going against me. Like, he literally was debating against me. Like, completely against my position. That's what it took to save me. You see what I'm saying? So maybe I also just view conflict a little bit different than most. I'm not as sensitive, like, Soul Sphere or whatever, but and then the other thing is, like, one of my more recent female friends, M, and I met her. I mean, I think I've talked about her before. It's kind of a bit of a flex, but she works for the UN. But anyway, when I met her, man, she's like the most empathetic person I've ever met, and like one of the nicest people I've ever met. So, oh, you're in New York. Okay, well, New York, y'all, New York people say y'all too, which is I fit in there, man. It's weird, bro. I've always fit in every time I've gone, and I always felt like I wouldn't. But maybe because I'm not the stereotypical Southern guy. But anyway, yeah. M really just because she had this like professional empathy, basically, taught me that I was just fucking an asshole, honestly. So shout out to her for going against the grain with me, and that's why I'm being a bit of a dick to Soulsphere because of his reactions. But to be clear, I truly do see value in it. Like for people that just get sensitive about it, it's because you don't see value, and if you don't see value, that's a problem. Because there is value in people feeling differently than you. There always is. Otherwise, it's like someone just can never feel differently than you. There's no value in that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, sometimes they might actually even change your mind. And my friend M, and I'll leave on this since I'm going to leave after this point, made me be empathetic. Made me give a fuck about, hey, maybe this person doesn't understand, right? Like she got me ready for YouTube. But yeah, well, a lot of people from Texas have moved, to be clear. And I know a lot of people from Texas that moved to Carolina, for example. In fact, I would even say, like, out of places I know that people have moved from, like, Texas, that's a very common place. So is Pacific Northwest and New York, ironically. I know, but I know a friend that actually is moving his entire family to New York, so there you go. Lots of people leaving Texas is the kind of point that I'm making. But in Soulsphere's case, he has to be from Texas because he never responded. You guys are telling me exceptions, but they didn't respond, which means I got them on. Which I just did for the lulz. Anyway, just like for the lulz, a lot of this stream has been all over the place. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. I'm actually probably going to get something to eat because I'm hungry. Make something. In fact, I might make a hamburger or something. No, I'm going to make fajita. Yeah, I think I'll make fajita or steak, aka steak. And maybe eat some rice. Yeah, he's moving to upstate, which is like a really nice area. But to be clear, I think they do all right in that area, so maybe that's why. You say y'all, you're not even American? That's kick ass, dude. I want everyone to say y'all. Honestly, I say y'all here in Mexico. When I speak English, I'll say y'all sometimes, and I'll explain to them. I was like, here's what y'all means. And they're just like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm trying to spread y'all all over the world, to be honest. Good. Man, I feel supported. See, Eleanor, I was talking about how representation doesn't matter. All the y'all fucking posters, all the y'all winners came in and started saying, we use y'all too. And y'all made me feel good about myself. So representation works, dude. I'm just kidding. My bad. Anyway, I'm gonna go make some steak. I'm gonna go make some steak. I'm gonna go put some Worcestershire sauce on my steak. Hell yeah. Seriously. I'm hungry. I want steak.